to come from the bowels of hell.
The Dana Gould Hour.
Jungle worms and swamp rats run around your feet.
I bought a dog that killed the calf, that ate the canary. What is truth?
And once again, welcome back.
Happy holidays. Kinda. It's the post-Thanksgiving, pre-Christmas episode of the Dana Gould Hour Podcast. Now, I think we can squeeze one more in before Christmas. That is certainly my intention. This is purportedly the Thanksgiving episode, but I had a deadline on something else. Which is not to say that this episode is not what you'd like to call BOFFO. Dr. Kevin Fitzgerald is here. Now, Kevin has been a guest on our show before. He's known for his TV show, Emergency Room Vets, on Animal Planet. And in addition to being a veterinarian, he is also an animal preservationist, a conservationist, and before that, he was a rock and roll tour bouncer. There are stranger tales to be told, I am sure, but I can't say I know of any off the top of my head. Kevin is the real-life Forrest Gump, and he has a memoir out now telling the details of the many, many lives he's led, and it's called It Started with a Turtle, and he is here today to tell us all about it. Comedian par excellence, Greg Proops is here. From whose line is it anyway? And Greg is here to tell us all about his new comedy album, The Free State of California, out now. True Tales From Weirdsville takes a deep dive into a side of the king of rock and roll that you might not know about. Elvis Presley, practitioner of the occult. It's weird, but it's all true. And that makes it just the tale for True Tales from Weirdsville. As we wind up our 14th season of the show, as always, the show is brought to you by you. Oh, you might hear a couple of spot ads here and there, but the show has always relied on its listeners for support, and we never fail to appreciate you. And so, if you are not one already, please consider becoming a Dana Gould Hour Sky Cadet. If you like the show, go to danagould.com and sign up for our Patreon. It's $5 a month. And you get some extra audio content, some video content, and some other junk. We don't have graduated levels. $5 a month. I'm not going to charge you $17.30 and 3 weeks a year. I'll come to your house and massage your grandmother. $5 a month. You get some stuff. Don't be a shy cadet. Be a Sky Cadet. It's a simple deal for complicated times. And now, it's on to our filthy business.
Dana Gould Hour. Free and worth it.
It's a cloudy, rainy day high atop the Mulholland Drive view shelf here in the formerly sunny Southern California, the jewel in the West Coast crown, in the People's Republic of Los Angeles, here in the former United States. My guest today is a good buddy and an old friend, and I've often described him as the real-life Forrest Gump. Kevin Fitzgerald is not only an excellent stand-up comedian and a good buddy of mine, he's also on the board of the Denver Zoo. He is a conservationist. He is a veterinarian. He was the star of the Animal Planet's Emergency Room Vets. But prior to all that, he made his living in the world of rock and roll. And we're going to get into all of that today. His book is called It Started with a Turtle. Kevin, what started with a turtle?
Thank you for having me. I couldn't follow that intro with the Marine Band. Well, it all started off with a dime store turtle. In the 50s, they sold these little things, little baby red-eared sliders. They caught them in Louisiana and Mississippi, and they would sell them in drugstores, and they give you a plastic dish with a plastic palm tree and little stones, and the thing could kind of pull myself out on a little ramp. But it was, they sold 2.5 million a year, and they would just die and languish. And anyway, we had one named Sam, and we were living with my grandmother, and she didn't want to take care of it. She was the one that had to take care of it. My brother, cousins, we were all living there. And she told us one day, well, Sam has told me, we talked, and he'd like to go to the zoo and live with the other turtles in the pond. So I'd never seen her talk to him. I didn't realize that she was having conversations with the turtles.
And this turtle size of a silver dollar. It's just a little.
Oh yeah, it's tiny. And so the next day I stayed up all night with him, and he lived on the windowsill in a little pond, his little plastic thing. And so she wrapped him up in toilet paper and put him in her purse, and we sneaked across, we sneaked in the door with the turtle. She didn't, she didn't drive, so we walked across the park to the zoo. And
is this in New York?
This is in Denver.
Denver, okay.
Where I grew up.
Right.
And so we came across the park, and we were sad, this little parade of little sad people. So she got in, and we got to the turtle pond, and she stood up. She's a big Irish woman, and she stood up and took him out of the toilet paper and dropped him in, and he hit. And ripples went out, and he kind of spun slow, and this big mouth came up from underneath. Bam! And just took him. So we're all, and she's like, "That's not Sam. That wasn't Sam. That was." It was. I'm 5 years old, but I'm not an idiot.
It wasn't.
I knew that was Sam. So I think all my life as a veterinarian.
What was it? A fish? What got him?
It was a big snapping turtle, and just took him down, and so. His head was way bigger than Sam, and so Sam was gone. And so I think for the rest of my life as a veterinarian, I've been trying to help Sam and trying to, get back and fix a animal and pay my dues. But
oh my God, poor Sam! But that was you used to be able to go to Woolworths and buy a turtle.
Yeah. And
did that just get right? Did somebody at one point just go, well, this is insane. We can't do this.
No, you're very perceptive. You're very perceptive. In the early 70s, they couldn't figure it out that they had 375,000 cases of salmonella in children under 10 years old. So there was this huge salmonella thing, and then they traced it back to turtles. So they made it illegal to sell a turtle under 5 inches, and 5 inches because that's the width of a 5-year-old's mouth, because the kids would put them in their mouths. And so, so, or lick them or whatever. And so, the salmonella was rampant, so that they made them illegal to sell. So all reptiles, they naturally shed salmonella. So and they're not sick with it.
That was actually the law that they used to prosecute Epstein. No, I'm kidding.
You had the best joke. You go. Oh, your Epstein jokes. These are crazy times.
Oh my God, it's insane. I can't even. We'll get into that.
I was supposed to go up to northern Canada and put some radio transmitters in some snowy owls, and the Canadians called and said, "At this time, we can't have American researchers." How do you piss off Canada?
I know.
The most polite people ever.
I heard a really funny thing this morning that I guess Rush is going back on tour with a woman drummer.
Right, because Neil Peart's dead, right?
Right, and they said, I think it's great. Rush fans will be in the same room as a woman.
The Canadian bands, the band,
sure.
And Neil Young. I mean, there's
Neil Young. There's Gordon Lightfoot. I didn't know this. I want to get back to turtles, and we'll get into music, but Dylan and Gordon Lightfoot were tight.
Gordon Lightfoot was tight with a lot of people.
Yeah, but like Dylan really respected Gordon Lightfoot.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing.
He's a great songwriter.
Yeah, I remember that. The wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, which I believe was yesterday.
That's right. The anniversary.
Yeah, that was yesterday.
The founding that ship in the lake. Yeah.
And that's like a 20-minute song.
Yeah.
Yeah. NRBQ used to cover it.
It's a dirge, you know.
Yeah. Well, then Dylan did the same thing about the Titanic on his album Tempest. He did basically the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald about the Titanic. And he does name check Leonardo DiCaprio in it, which is kind of great. But so you all your life, you've wanted to sort of make it up to this poor turtle and you did repair a turtle's shell, which I think is an interesting story. You're also, in addition to a veterinarian, you're a conservationist. You travel to all these weird places and put radio transmitters in animals. I'm assuming for official purposes and not just your own enjoyment. But your road to veterinary school, in the traffic flow of your life, would I be incorrect in saying that Keith Richards was the traffic cop that directed you to be a veterinarian?
Well, that's right. You know, I put myself through school bouncing for bands, working for Bill Graham and for Barry Fay here in Denver, and what a wonderful thing. In the late 60s, you know, 67, 68, the promoters and the record companies realized this untapped network of kids of people that would buy records and go to concerts. And
this was the beginning of those giant stadium tours. Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
because like when the Beatles played Shea Stadium, which was like the first giant rock show, their equipment, they played through the stadium PA.
Right.
You know, and they like the idea of, and people forget, like the idea of those giant stadium shows, the Beatles had been out of it for years before they even figured out how to do it.
In the very beginning, it was an infant industry, and we didn't know, you know, what happens when you get 75,000 kids together, and how do you feed them, and do you serve beer or you know, I mean, how many bathrooms, how many Santa lists do you open? I mean, in production wise, how do you make it visible to a football stadium, and right. You know, how do you make the sound even passable? I mean, imagine, because you know, comedy outdoors, it's ridiculous. You can't do it. The laughs go straight up. You know, right. In the comedy works where you performed, you know, the laughs bounce off the ceiling and it amplifies, and so it's great and it's contagious.
Right.
But so music outside is the same thing. It's tough. So the concert industry matured and evolved and became corporate.
Yeah.
You know, and became a giant business.
And how did you, you know, it's the late 60s, you're in your teens, 20s. You were probably concerned about military service and palm trees. And so how did you fall into, did you want to be a vet? Did you know then that you wanted to work like in conservation with animals, or were you just like a fucking lunatic?
No, I wasn't a lunatic. I knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't know exactly what. And you do jobs and you figure out what you don't want to do. Right.
Yeah, that's true. I know what I don't want to do.
You know, young kids ask me, they say, I want to do what you do. And I said, well, do you want to do what I did? You know,
yeah.
They don't always want to do it. So you can't win unless you play. Right. And so.
That's good.
So I was working the door at the sink in Boulder for this guy, and he said, I'm going to give you $1.39 an hour and a flashlight and a hamburger every ship, and you'll meet more girls than Frank Sinatra. You know? so you work the door,
but hopefully not the same ones.
They're not the same ones. And then we went up to Tulagi, another live music place that the same manager did, and then he became partners with Faye. at a place called it was called Ebbets Field in Denver.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And Barry had this place called the Family Dog. So they merged forces, and then Barry started doing tours, and went to the bands and said, "Look, up until now, every tour, 1969, 68, you've had to have an accounting in every city, and there's a nut cutting in every city about how many butts are in seats. I'm going to sell every ticket before the tour, and you'll have to only deal with me, one account and one thing," which made it so much more attractive.
So basically, instead of 30 individual dates, he did one 30-part. Yeah,
right. So it was the birth of the modern tour, and
God, the financial layout for that in the inception of it has to be just. You've got to go to a bank. You take a loan. I guess you get a loan from a bank. I guess you go to a bank and you go like, "Hey, I'm going to do this. You're going to give me $250,000, and I'm going to put deposits on all of these venues." And
but remember though, tickets were doable.
Right.
It was affordable. That the Denver Pop Festival was 3 months before Woodstock, and it had Hendrix and it had. Every great Creedence Clearwater and Iron Butterfly and everybody at the time played that. Dave Mason, everybody played that, 3 nights, and it was $3.50 a night.
Oh my God! And now it would be
so
nowadays you couldn't get in for $350.
No, and so tickets have become so ridiculous. But even in bad times, people will pay for entertainment.
Sure.
Comedy, even in horrible times, comedy, comedy rooms do well. But
it is, it is different though. Like I was just a couple weeks ago at the Hollywood Bowl, was Devo and the B-52s.
Oh man.
Yeah. And I was like,
"Are we not men?"
Yeah. And I was like, "Oh, I'd like to see that show." But were I to go, it would have been like $400. And it's not, it used to be like going to the movies. It's like, yeah, $20. I'll go, it's like, you want to go to a show or a movie? Like we can do either. Now it's like Goldthwait and I went to see The Who at the Hollywood Bowl, and we had really great seats. Like $500 a seat.
Yeah. It's so funny. I did a Devo tour, and I called my brother who was doing it, and I said, "Nobody's coming, and this is great stuff," and it was great. And then I did 3 farewell tours for The Who.
Yes, they only do farewell tours. They
even when I was bouncing, there were farewell tours for The Who.
Yeah, but the first one was in '82, and then there was about 11 after that.
Yeah.
But it's so funny you're talking about. I was just back in Boston for my dad's birthday, and I was talking to my oldest brother. My oldest brother, Dick. His nickname is Dick. His real name is Penis. And there's a famous concert that The Who did at the Boston Garden where they got halfway through Substitute and Keith Moon passed out. And they literally had to carry him off. And that was the end of the show. And my brother was at that show. Because he'd always said he was at that show, and I forgot about it. But his wife was with him at the time, and she was like, "Oh no, I remember that," and we were pissed because they called us like, "Sorry, we'll come back in April. Save your ticket stub, and we'll come back." But they said most people would come in and just throw their ticket stub on the ground, so people had to buy tickets again. But back then, you could buy tickets twice.
It was doable, but the whole industry was just such a. In its infancy, and so a nation, and just so you like as a bouncer working for a band. I remember working for the Flying Burrito Brothers in the beginning, and asking Chris Hillman, "Well, how do I eat?" He goes, "Well, you just kind of call room service." So the other bouncer and I were like, "Well, this surf and turf, what? Well, that's pretty good." Look, yeah, pie. Could you send up a whole pie to us? And I mean, the bills still have to be coming in for that tour, but we didn't. And then by the time you get on with bigger bands and later years, it was like the Marine Corps. It was like, look, we feed everybody at noon in the hospitality tent, and then you have a per diem for later on at the hotel, and so it it was really
regimented. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So it changed so much, but in the very beginning was seat of the pants, and it was so much fun because we were making it up as we went along.
It was literally the carnival. I mean, it was just like being in the circus. It was just literally insanity.
Working on a tour in those days, really being a little boy from Denver was like running away with the circus.
Yeah. And this is in the set. Did you do most of your bouncing in the 70s or
60s and 70s, and then I stopped in the 80s. By the mid 80s, I was done.
Yeah, you said around Steel Wheels.
I came back to do a Wu-Tang.
Now, I do want to get to that, but I've got to go back to the who you were largely employed by did you do other stuff, and then did the Rolling Stones kind of was that your main contract, or did you just happen to work?
No, they had, the bands kind of have a promoter that does it, but the band has some say about the people close to them.
Right.
And so once you've been there and made your bones and, 69, 72, then they'd ask you back,
Yeah. And you got to be cool. I mean, you have to be kind of cool about it.
But mainly you're working for the promoter,
right.
that is booking it. And you have to be cool with them. And they know if you have a history and say, well, we'll get you this guy. And if you don't do drugs and you're honest, you could do well.
You have to not do drugs, or at least while you're working. And you have to be honest. And you also have to you can't be a fan, or you can't act like a fan. You can't be like, oh my God, Keith Richards, because he's looking to you to protect him. You've got to be kind of all business.
You're not there to, you aren't in the band.
Yeah.
You aren't part of the band. You aren't there to watch. You're there to make sure people get in and out safely and the show goes smooth, and that you get your band from the airport to the hotel, and hotel to the venue back to the hotel, and everybody's cool. I always, two things were always made me wonder. I wondered about, the what's his name that shot John Lennon?
Mark David Chapman.
Mark David Chapman. They always have three names.
I know they always have. It's very true.
All the assassins have three names. But so if you have three names, you might be an assassin.
Yeah.
So, but he stood for 2 weeks in front of the Dakota. For 2 weeks, he stood there every day. And that wouldn't happen with the Rolling Stones. We took a picture of the crowd every morning.
Really? Outside the hotel?
Yeah. And if we saw a guy that had been in the city the night before, we'd go, oh, that guy. And we'd go and touch him up a little and shake him down. Hey, how you doing? You got your autograph yesterday. You got you still, and well, I can be here. So how about you just tell the policeman, that guy's selling drugs. That guy's doing,
Yeah. It would be pretty easy to get. And it is weird because, I mean, and you and I even see this with, comedy and stuff. There's people that are fans and they come to your show and you're so grateful because they're your boss. And I have people that come every time I'm in, I go to Denver and I see people that come every time, and I go to San Francisco, I get people that come every time. And then you have those people whose pupils are just a little off. And if you listen really closely, there's a carnival music in their head.
And they got three eyes white. When we were bouncing, we called it three eyes white. If you could see three sides of white with your eye, you should only see white on this side and this side, not underneath and above. And if they have 3 and 4 sides white, they're insane. They're totally insane. And so you watch your eyes. So you're exactly right. So and the other thing that made me sad was security wise, from being an old security person, was I didn't understand how in the hell that Will Smith got to that stage to slap him. In a venue, in a hall, there's that many famous people. There had to be a ton of security there, their own security. And
sure.
venue,
you're talking about at the Academy Awards?
But when he slapped Chris Rock.
Yeah. I think if people see Will Smith come in, they think, they might have planned this.
But what you do is you make it impossible. That was just flat. So he just walked across. You raise it up a little. So you'd have to, you think of things before they happen. And I always wondered about that. I go, how did that guy get there? If something like that would have happened to us when we were working, you don't get paid or you're fired.
Yeah, you're fired. Yeah, think you're fired. Now, I just literally watched Gimme Shelter, which I'd never seen. And you were there, correct? At Altamont?
Well, that wasn't our fault.
No, I know it wasn't. It was
the Hells Angels have been hired by.
It was the Grateful Dead. Jerry Garcia said you should hire the Hells Angels for security and pay them in beer before the event. 3 bad ideas.
Well, but they'd always done that in San Francisco. So that show had Jeff Schneider playing the Burritos, Grateful Dead, Crosby, Stills and Nash, and the Rolling Stones.
Right.
And so they were there. And what had happened was the stage again wasn't put out right. The show wasn't supposed to be there, remember? It was supposed to be in Golden Gate Park. And so they couldn't get the venue. So they're at the Speedway. And what happened was, they had made a little stage with no barricade and put their bikes around the stage as the barricade and then let in 250,000 kids. If they touched their bike, they got whacked with a pool cue.
Right. Yeah.
So it.
And the guy there's one thing is that the guy that got killed did pull a gun. I mean, he wasn't like an innocent fan that got killed. No,
he pointed a gun at the stage, but also the biker that killed him was acquitted.
Yeah. They did a lot of horrible. I mean, they were very abusive people. I don't think that's a giant bulletin, but no, this is when you watch the video, like, well, yeah, that guy's got a goddamn gun.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, you take pride in protecting your people, and something like that, it was kind of lost before it had started. You've been to comedy gigs where you go, oh, I don't see how this can work.
Yes, yeah.
And they're walking around and they're not focused, and you've got a Mr. Mic and there's no speaker, or you don't have a microphone at all, and you're going, and they go, well, can you just try? Can you just try? And they were pulling people off the stage.
Yeah.
They pulled Marty Ballin off the stage from the Jeff Schneider plane. And
do you think, having gone through that period, that the audience behavior changed with the change in the kind of drugs that people were taking at the time? Because you have this story of in the West Coast, there was the Laurel Canyon music scene. And then in the East Coast, there was Velvet Underground. In the New York scene, and people said, yeah, the reason the New York sounds was a lot darker and harder is because people in New York had already moved up to heroin and harder drugs. It was like a pot scene and a heroin scene. Is there any truth to that?
It's a great question. I think the behavior of the crowd reflects training of the crowd as far as expectations of the halls for how the crowd should behave. And so what I mean is, over time, particularly in Denver, we got to see the crowds were trained. Oh, they're going to check you at the gate for bottles, and we're gonna do no festival seating. There's going to be everybody that has a ticket has a seat, an assigned seat. So there's going to be no stampedes. So there's no. So it's up to the powers that be, the band and the promoter and the people that run the venue to have the crowd controlled and know what to expect. And so over time, in the very beginning, man, we didn't know what to do. What do you do when you have 75,000 kids in a football stadium? And so, but over time, you get to realize how you deal with kids outside without tickets that are milling around and turning cars over or lighting cars on fire, or people selling bootleg T-shirts or bootleg tickets outside, that are the scalpers. So,
do you have to allow a certain amount of it? What is or is it like a broken windows policy? You stop everything?
You need to stop as much as you can for things before they get out of control. With the drugs, you could look at the crowd and see what drug they were on. the Jefferson Earth thing would go, look, in the center, the acid people are talking to the sun, and the speed freaks are going around like the Indianapolis 500 around the outside, grinding their teeth.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah. That makes sense.
But, excuse me, there were regional things. I mean, in the types of the show, you're going to have a different crowd at a Joni Mitchell show than you're going to have for a heavy metal thing. And so, or for a black show, where people dress up for the show. You're not going to shake them down. You're not going to pat somebody's wife down and she's in her best clothes. It's not going to happen. So over time, it kind of morphed and got into what it is now. And it's unfortunate. Now you have metal detectors
metal detectors going to the fucking grade school.
Yeah. And so I just, this is a different day. We kind of, the, what do they say? The blushes off the bloom, I mean, it's really, it's not an innocent time. We've lost a lot of innocence. But it was fun at the beginning when we didn't know what would happen. I mean, it was just, it's kind of like, let's put on a show when you're little.
Yeah.
And so, it's so, I think that it's always been exciting for me. I never played an instrument, but you love the music and the people were your heroes, and you looked at the record jackets and you tried to get your hair like the guy, or, wow, he's wearing a jean jacket. I got to get a jean jacket. Or,
right. Hey, you don't have to mention any names, but was there ever somebody that you were a big fan of and then you worked for them, and then after you worked for them, you were no longer a fan of them, or the reverse? You weren't particularly into their music and then you get to know them and you love them.
Well, in my book, I always tried to do positive things, and positive stories, and not. But at the very beginning of the summer, they would divvy up the tours, and you didn't want to get, no names, but you didn't want to get a show that was really not one of the bands that you liked. We were Rock and Roll Live. We didn't want to end up, working for some mom pop type of thing, right? And so. You
the
want
cow sills.
Yeah. So I got Bob Seger, and I was like, oh no, this is awful. And then by the time I saw the first show, I had forgotten how many hits he had and how great he was live. And it was just like, man, oh man, this is, so, sometimes you could fall asleep and think you were going to, wake up in some horrible place. But you end up with this wonderful thing, or Gladys Knight and the Pips. I mean, what a show! I mean, it was just all show and just.
I'm glad you said that. I was sitting in a hotel, and just going on channels, and I was on this thing Pluto, which has a classic TV section, and because 9 times out of 10, if there's nothing else on, I'll watch Perry Mason, or Bonanza. And I'll call my brother and I'll tell him what Bonanza I'm watching. But there was the best of Ed Sullivan, and it was all of these. There's a documentary about Ed Sullivan on Netflix where he was really pro civil rights, and he put on, I don't know what the nomenclature is, black acts, African American, mid 60s, 64, 5, 6. And the network would say don't put your arm around Dionne Warwick when you talk to her after,
right?
Because we'll lose viewers in the South. And he would say, well, they can go fuck themselves. Yeah, no, he was really staunchly and like an unsung hero of that. And because he brought these acts into America's living room, he made people comfortable with them in the same way, in a weird way, like Will and Grace normalized people's view of gay people. People that didn't I was going to say that didn't know any gay people, that didn't think they knew any gay people, but they watched Will and Grace like, oh, they seem normal. It's really true. That show did a lot. And he was really an unsung hero of the civil rights era by just like insisting on bringing these people. But then you watch these guys like especially Gladys Knight and the Pips or James Brown. Like, they're so good. And I don't know how they do that. Just their moves, the synchronization of their moves. Well,
it was just so tight.
Or the Temptations. They're just mind-boggling.
Yeah, they were so tight because they played every night.
Mm-hmm.
And they played so many. It wasn't like, these tours where they've got one show a week or two shows a week. I mean, they were playing every night across the Chitlin circuit or the places where where they in front of black acts and in front of you've done comedy with all black and you better be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You better be good. They're very unforgiving.
Yeah, well, it's all about crowd control.
You better put on a good show.
Yeah, when I'm in a situation where I don't think the crowd knows me, I will walk out to the very lip of the stage and walk the entire stage. It's sort of a subliminally, like establishing dominance. Like, no, this is my area. This is my area. And I'm in charge now. And you don't yell. You do it with silence.
You don't have to yell. You don't have to yell. If you act like you know what you're doing, people are comfortable.
That's exactly it. And I always take long silences just to like assert that. Like, no, I know what I'm doing. I'm not afraid of quiet either.
Yeah. Sometimes you say a lot by shutting up,
mm-hmm.
And so I think comedy is so much, there's so much to learn from like, stage presence or just how you do it and how you set things up. And I don't think you have to be, this aggressive thing that is, right in their face. I think you can do things to be more ingratiating and let them in a little bit, or do things to say, look, this is how it goes. This is my stage.
I saw Steven, the best heckler comeback I ever heard was Stephen Wright's. Some guy shouted out something and he just went, "I'll kill you."
I like yours, where somebody drops a glass and it obviously shatters, and you say, "You should try the soft contact."
Yeah, good memory. Yeah.
That's yours. That's yours. Yeah, so many good things. Comedy's in a funny place right now. For me, I think there's different forms, of course, but now
comedy's become like music in the genres.
Yeah. No, there's storytellers, and then there's joke tellers, and
there's joke, but there's also like alt-right guys, angry male guys. It used to be like you're going to see, like you would put on anybody with anybody. People just thought it was one size fits all, and now it's like, well, are you an edgelord? Are you, the political divide and the socio-political divide has worked its way into comedy. I would never be on the same bill with some of these guys from Austin or whatever, because people don't get their bias confirmed,
I hope there's always people like you that are wordsmiths. I mean, your thing is that the joke is funny, but the words leading up to it are funny. And so I think that's for me is great. It's
and I think there's always people, like I always see people that like make me happy. Like, oh, good. There's somebody really, the song "Who Are You" is about the night Pete Townsend met the Clash. And he was, oh, thank God. And I get that. I'm not comparing myself to them, but it's just like you see people coming up and like, oh, you're great. Go. There's a guy named Drew Landry here is a young guy coming up who's just fantastic. And what a pleasure to watch him. You know, there's a lot of really great people out there.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of good comedy of young people coming up, and you know, I do one-liners.
Mm-hmm.
The structure that I came through to be able to get onto the regular list of the Comedy Works, you had to do 3 minutes at the New Talent Night every week. And I only had 3 minutes, so I couldn't tell a story.
Right, yeah, it's very hard.
But, you know, I did bam, 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 bam. Here's another one. It's like feeding baby birds. You know, jamming the joke down their throat.
No, I understand that completely. And I always had that trouble when I would do Letterman or Conan. Like, it was very difficult for me to boil everything down to 4 or 5 minutes. You know, I wanted to ask you two things before we move into your medical career and your globetrotting transistor radio installing in polar bears career. I wanted to talk about the Elvis tour that you did, and I wanted to talk about I want to talk about Elvis. I want to talk about Wu-Tang, and I want to talk about the time Keith Richards pulled you in and said, "Kevin, what are you doing with your life?" But you did. Were you on the last Elvis tour?
Well, what happened was, you know, Elvis. Some performers do wonderful things. You know, the Red Fox, all the guys he came up with were on Sanford and Son. All those guys, Grady, all those comics had a place.
Yeah.
And Elvis did the same thing. Elvis, anybody he'd gone to high school with had a place on the tour. Anybody that'd been nice to him growing up, you know, it could be, oh, you're in charge of luggage, and I was, you know, $175,000 a year sound, and you're gonna do you make sure the drivers are, and right. So.
Have a Cadillac.
That was the same way with his security. But over time, sometimes security people can fall into a pit of partying with the people or partying themselves,
right?
And think that they're the show, and they're not. And
right.
And they had fired them and hired, you know, the bouncers from the company that we worked for, and that had coincidentally done the Rolling Stones, Jimmy Callahan and people. And so we got it. And it didn't last very long because sadly wasn't in great shape. But, you know, I had never, you know, you talk about people being starstruck.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you. Like all of these people, but then there's only one Elvis.
There's only one Elvis. And I mean, he had an aura.
Sure.
You could see it. I mean, it was just like, I mean, you're like.
Yeah, I believe you. How tall was he?
6 feet, 6'1".
Okay.
You know? And so he wasn't, you know, he was, and by that time, heavy and.
But he was, it's so funny because, yeah, he was heavy, more bloated than heavy. But if you look at it, like people like say like Fat Elvis, when you look at Elvis at his fattest, by today's standards, he just looks like a guy. You know, because the way people, I think, was that Adam Carolla was talking about, like, you know, look at Woodstock. Look at the footage of people in Woodstock. Everybody's skinny. And it's because they weren't eating what we were eating. You know, they weren't eating the food that they had was not laden with all this like sodium.
That's right. Most of the people had just recently come out of their parents' homes where the mother cooked. The people sat down. People didn't eat standing up or eat on the run. There wasn't the amount of fast food. There wasn't, you know, the Applebee's and Carrabba's and every, you know, Outback. There wasn't, you know, there were neighborhood restaurants and there was your mom cooking.
Yeah. And the food wasn't as full of the preservatives that we have now. That it's hard to eat well. It's hard. It takes effort to eat well. And it's, you have people now that the epidemic of obesity is not a joke. And you look, and Elvis didn't even come close to that. He was just kind of, he was bloated and overweight, but he wasn't like today. He would walk down the street almost like that guy.
Well, that people get used to seeing a performer and thinking of him. And so, seeing the young Elvis and thinking of him and, Hound Dog. And then,
he made the mistake of, he was so beautiful.
And seeing this guy at 242 pounds, and you go, ooh, wait a minute. That's not my Elvis. That's somebody else. But people age. And so can performers age gracefully or just age normally? I mean, I think Helen Mirren in Mobland, man, oh man.
Oh yeah.
She's still great. She's just so much of a character and hasn't had, tons of work done or whatever. And other societies venerate their elderly, and
not us.
We like, the youth thing is so hard and it's crazy. I'm a baby boomer, but born in 51. And so my doctor told me, he goes, "What's wrong with you guys? What's wrong with you baby boomers?" We had a guy in here the other day, 78 years old, going, "I can't ski the bumps anymore." And he said, "Wait a minute, you're almost 80 years old. You shouldn't be skiing the bumps, So age is like forbidden, it's like the forbidden thing where in other, in Ireland where my parents are from, the oldest person in the town gets to be the mayor. I mean, he's the person with the most experience and knows everything. So other societies, honor the older people. And so seeing a fat Elvis and I just, but still, it is screwed up as he was. As soon as the drum hit, man, he was on. He could perform.
Yeah. I was just telling the story the other day that it is alarming about that. I was on a Bob Hope special I was the second to last one. And I was literally standing next to him as he was getting ready to go on. And he was hunched over and kind of muttering, just, they hit that intro and he shot up about 1.5 feet, ramrod straight, glided out onto that stage, didn't miss a beat, like an assassin.
Yeah, Joan Rivers.
Yeah, walked off, and then the minute he was off stage, it was shaped like an S again. It was just the strangest thing. But yeah, these guys hit the stage and everything clicks. Of the Stones, it is amazing. Mick Jagger hasn't so much aged gracefully as not aged. They still dress pretty rock and rolly. I thought that of all those guys, the two that aged the coolest were Townsend and Charlie Watts. Because they kind of started to dress like older dudes. They put on a suit, but they still do their stuff. I kind of thought they both had it figured out. They dressed like old bluesmen or old jazzmen.
Well, that's right. When we did the 69 tour, B.B. King, dress, and I look back, he always dressed in a suit.
Yeah.
A banker or a lawyer or something, and I always saw how old he was, but even then he was probably only in his 30s and it made him look, like an older gentleman. But Charlie, he married to the same woman, for 50 years and then also raising horses and had become a gentleman and was this figure,
Yeah.
And so he was something. So how people dress,
and he was really a jazz drummer.
He was. And look at the amount of drums that his kit, what he has, how spare it is compared to some of the guys, like if you looked at Ginger Baker's set or whatever, what he had, and it was just really minimal and but still so beautiful. I mean, you could set a clock by him. I think,
yes.
Keith always said, people are asking him, who's the best band in the world? Who's the best band? And Keith said, whoever's playing live tonight. Cause there's nothing like live music, watching the drummer drum and seeing the drummer sweat and trying to keep up with the singer.
Yeah.
And so nothing like live music. Same with live comedy. it doesn't come across on TV, I think, as well.
No, there's no difference. Yeah, there's no comparison. It's funny because Townsend is such a Rolling Stones fan, and he writes, I think, is in this book, how like Charlie Watts was his favorite drummer because he had to work with Keith Moon, and he goes, the problem with Keith when I was drumming is like Keith wouldn't keep time. Keith would follow Roger. Keith would follow the singer, and I had to keep time. He goes, when Keith died, I became a much better guitarist because I didn't have to keep time anymore.
Well, they were always they never had a number one song, The Who.
No.
But they had so many great songs, and live they were so good. I mean, they were such a great band live.
It was insane. Even if you look at like the footage from Kids Are All Right, like the live Won't Get Fooled Again, that's all over YouTube. And that's them not at their peak. That's them on the beginning of the downside of their peak. But it's still like you've never seen anything like it. And to imagine those guys in like 72, it must have just been mind-boggling.
Yeah. First my son was in 70, and it was just, I mean, you couldn't believe it. It's like, man, it took your breath away. That bass hit you right in the chest, you know?
Yeah. And now, had you already left bouncing when you went back to work for Wu-Tang, or was that one of your last gigs?
Well, Wu-Tang was so, it was 2002.
Okay. So yes, you'd been retired for a long, long time.
Yeah. 17 years since I'd done a Michael Jackson thing. And so it was, man, it was, Butch Greer was this guy that worked for, and God bless him, he's gone now, but it was a stage manager, and he had worked at different venues and clubs and been a bouncer himself, and was a great guy and was our friend. And he had hired us for Earth, Wind and Fire, and then let us go, you know, my cousins and brother, he said, I'll never work with the Irish again. You're too violent. We can't have you. And then in 2002, he called us up and said, I need you guys. I need a crew. I need a crew of people. And I go, wait a minute. You told us we were, what you got a bloodbath. What do you got? I got the Wu-Tang. And he goes, it's a loose federation of rappers. And I said, I know who it is. It's RZA, Jizza, Old Dirty Bastard, Ghostface Killer, Master Deck, Ghostface Killer, Raekwon, You God, Method Man. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, it's like naming the Seven Dwarfs, you know. So we got there, and what had happened was everybody had their own entourage.
Oh, God.
So I mean, you had more people backstage almost than were in the house. I mean, everybody's got, their homies and girlfriend and all her parents and his relatives.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Bouncer and his
Well, it is a clan.
and his valet. And so, but each guy had 35 people. So for the hospitality room, for the food in there, it was like locust. I mean, they go through 200 bottles of Perrier in an hour, and you just go. So we had to kind of set boundaries and but it was good. The show was good. So I became a Wu-Tang follower. I mean, it was good. And they liked my voice. And so I got to go out in the beginning of the show and, ladies and gentlemen, enter the Wu-Tang. the greatest thing.
And so how old are you now? So you're like, you're in, how old are you then? Your 40s?
I was in my 50s.
Were you still knocking, did you have to knock any heads on that tour?
No. What we had to do is we had to show their bouncers, I mean, the biggest problem then was the security people of each of the different performers trying to measure testicles and the fighting's there. And so I just said, guess what? Everybody gets to bring their manager, their valet, their girlfriend, and their brother, whatever, 5 people each person. But we can't have 9 people have 45 people. You can't have 5 people backstage. Because when you work for these other bands, it's a clean backstage. There's nobody back. The people get to go to the meet and greet at the end,
right,
and shake hands. But you don't need them back there going, hey, do we have any more? I'd like another Perrier.
Yeah. But there's a story in the book that's really great about, there was a guy in the audience who was a little unruly, and he was given some warnings, and then to solve the problem, he won a contest.
Well, you can't go if you go in the crowd. That's what we've realized early on. You had to have peer security. You had to have kids doing the security and not police, because whatever the kid has done, the crowd sees the cop go in and get the kid, and they're like, "Hey, let that guy go. He's not doing anything." So you can't go in the crowd and get somebody. But maybe you got a guy lighting fireworks and shooting pop bottle rockets at the stage, or dropping ladyfingers from up above.
Yeah, you're gonna hurt somebody.
So you can't go in and just grab them, but you go up and you try and use your head. So you try and use a little bit of misdirection, where I go up and ask the kid, "Oh, your seat, you've won the contest. What? You get to come backstage. This seat, you get to come back and meet the band. What? Yeah, come on, right back with us. Come on right now." And then you get him behind the wall, and there's 5 guys waiting, and you tackle him and give him to the cops, and then he's at breakfast on the county, and he doesn't know what happened.
And that was breakfast on the county. That was that also goes to asking a guy where he parked. Or is it soup yet?
Yeah, we make up a nonsense question, and then
to disorient them.
Yeah, and the guy goes, "What?" And then I'm gonna and then if you're working with another bouncer, they say, "No, I'm gonna ask him, where did he park?" And then that means you hit him. Or if you say, "Is it soup?" that means I hit him. Is it soup yet? Is it soup yet was a commercial at the time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
So my brother came up with the thing, "I'm going to count to 3 and I'm going to smack you." And the guy won, and he'd always blast him on 1. And they always said the same thing. They go, "You didn't count to 3, but life's not going to be fair, So, but the main thing was no bloody mouths and no violence. And
you don't want to put hands on people if you can avoid it.
Oh, I mean, if you finally have to put your hands on somebody, that's the line of last resort.
Yeah.
But you can't, you have to make sure people are safe at the shows. That's your job.
Yeah. So one day, and this is the beginning of your medical career, every member of the Rolling Stones had a different responsibility on the tour. Like, Mick was responsible for merchandising, and Charlie Watts was responsible for the stage design, and they didn't do it, but that was their, those people reported to them. And so in that regard, Keith Richards was your boss, because he was security.
He was in charge of the bouncers and security, in charge of hotels. I mean, they each kind of had their own thing.
And so one day he calls you into his office.
says, listen, you've been with us, 69, 72, 75, 78. What are you going to do with your life? This isn't going to last forever. We're going to be like the flavor of the month. They never dream it still.
Yeah.
Still be playing. And so, he said, "Why don't you do something? Why don't you go to school? I'll help you. I'll write letters." And they thought, now when I see him, he say, "How long can you do it?" And they say, "Well, the old blues guys played into their 80s and the last time
they're still doing it.
The last time I sat down with him was when they had come to Boulder in 2022, I guess. And I said, "How long can you do it?" And he says, "I think we'll do it as long as Charlie wants to, but now they're still doing it." So, I mean,
yeah.
And he said, as long as we don't become a caricature of ourselves, and people still want to hear it.
Yeah, they did erase that sort of ironically, I hope I die before I get old kind of thing about I used to think of that too, because nobody gave Dizzy Gillespie shit for playing after 30, it's like, or, any of these jazz guys, you get, it's what I do. I remember,
Louis Armstrong.
Yeah. Or like in our job, like Carlin going like, "This is what I do." And, he'd still be, if he didn't have a bad heart, he'd still be doing it.
Have you worried about it? About your age, about maybe retiring, about maybe giving it up?
No, I've never wanted to give it up, but I do, and I'm dealing with this now, that I have to really aggressively cultivate my audience because my audience is my age, and they don't go out as much because they've got kids. And so it's not like I'm not 30, and so my audience needs a little more of a goose to come out. And it's just the reality of, there's only a couple people from my class, quote unquote, that are still touring in clubs. They either graduated like, Sandler and are doing, the Grand Canyon, or they don't do it anymore. And I can probably count on, if not one hand, two, no more than two, the amount of people from my sort of class that are still just touring clubs, doing Comedy Works and Acme and Helium. And you've got to be, you've got to cultivate your audience.
Right.
And they grow with you. I find it interesting when I do a class, this just happened. Inevitably, a waitress will come up to me and say, "Your audience, they're so nice." I'm like, "Yeah, you remind them of their daughter." It's like, it's like they're not trying to get laid; they're just trying to pay their mortgage.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I would never want to quit. You just do it and maybe do it in a different capacity. Like at some point, Carlin was writing his next special when he died.
Yeah. I've wondered sometimes, you walk out with white hair, like in the crowd, you can kind of hear him like, why is Geppetto here? Why did
that's the mustache. That's not the hair.
Why is Gandalf with us? So, but then you have to do your jokes, and then it is better. I think I'm a better comic now than I was when I started.
I certainly feel that about myself. There's 4 amazing sections of the book. It's like you live 4 lives in this book. Like there's your crazy childhood coming up. There's touring. There's like 4 books in one book. Then you're touring with you're at the height of the rock and roll era, mid 60s to mid 80s, touring with these ginormous bands. Then you have all these insane stories about the animals that you've worked with and helped. And then traveling the world doing conservation and going down into caverns to find albino snakes and all this lunacy. And the polar bear, the rescuing a polar bear with a helicopter.
Well, I think we were given this wonderful biodiversity. There's 10 million other forms of life on the planet besides us. And we were given...
we're God's favorite.
Yeah, we were given this wonderful biodiversity, all these animals, and our intellect. We were given our intellect, and all the other animals are waiting for us to use our intellect and save the place. But I think...
Good luck.
I'm encouraged. I still think that we just have to figure out, do we love life enough to save it, on this planet? And I think there's enough people that we've come to the forefront other times and came up with, with COVID, it came up with a vaccine right away, quickly. And so there's been times where, we get an attaboy, where we've done better. And we certainly have to do better with conservation because destruction of habitat and pollution and invasive species and over collecting, over harvesting, and then new diseases that come up, and many of the diseases are animal related. So if we see, bats, I tried that joke and people would boo, but I say, why don't they play baseball in Wuhan? they eat bats. What I mean? So you can't do that. But there's sometimes we make fun of what's horrifying, but
isn't that also a part of the earth being a self-regulating system? Like if there becomes too much of one thing, nature will deal with it? Like, I don't think
to an extent, but we have become such a geophysical force, humans, in terms of just, that's true. It is a self-correcting organism, but not to the extent that we're upsetting the apple cart. And so I think that, I hope with, better leadership, I mean, in try and think of some of these, agencies that, I mean, the national parks were the best idea anybody's ever had, and to set aside these beautiful areas of the United States and other countries doing the same thing. And then to see, this friend of mine, his little girl, she's not a little girl now, she's in her 40s, but I wrote a letter for her when she got out of forestry school to become a park ranger. But they laid her off in April from Yosemite or wherever she was. And
right. Yeah.
And so, I mean, what are we doing? Or sell off the national parks. I mean, I think, we have to put our foot down sometimes and just say, enough's enough.
Yeah. That's how I feel about specifically like AI and ChatGPT. Like, I don't work in an office environment. I don't know how to access ChatGPT or AI. I don't even know how to get at it, nor do I want to get at it. Like, would you like ChatGPT to write your email? No, if I can't write an email, then I don't have anything worth putting in an email. If I don't know how to talk, I don't need help. And AI specifically seems like, and somebody said this, I wish I knew who it was. Like, we're a strange species in that we seem to sometimes be in a rush to destroy ourselves.
Well, we are. It's because I say, we're given this godlike technology, but a Stone Age emotional base. I mean, emotionally we're Stone Age, and we still have this clan idea, this and tribal mentality. So. But we have a godlike technology. Look what we can do with medicine and with ultrasound and MRs and things that we can do. We used to say, I think your dog has a tumor. Now we say your dog has a tumor, 2 centimeters in the fourth quadrant of the brain. And so,
right.
I mean, it's amazing what we can offer, and it's happened so fast, and just see too the anti-science. People that in a country that came up with the transistor radio and the internet and the Salk vaccine, and people.
But but that to me does seem like Darwinism. Like, it was like, there's too many people. We need to cultivate some people that don't believe in vaccines, and then there'll be less.
We need to thin the herd.
I don't understand people that the doctors tell them to get vaccinated, and they go, well, that guy's crazy, I'm not getting vaccinated. And then they get sick, so they go to that doctor. It's like, why, if you don't want to get vaccinated, good, please don't go to the hospital when you're sick.
Yeah, that's right. I know that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
And it doesn't, but it's a fool who looks for logic in the chambers of the human heart.
Is what we do art? Is comedy art?
I consider it a craft. I think that it can, or it's a gutter art, like juggling. I think it can achieve I think Richard Pryor live in concert is art, because I can't imagine that anything better than that in terms of like a performance. But I consider it a craft or a gutter art. Like,
when I was bouncing, I got to work for George Burns. He came to Denver and was going to do a thing that I don't want anybody to bump him. He's old. I don't want him to break a hip. So I'll stand by him and just make sure nobody hurts him.
Yeah. His skeleton's like potato chips.
So he was so nice, and he was in his 90s. And so he was so nice. And I said, oh, Mr. Burns, you've seen it all. Vaudeville, radio, movies, television, stand-up. What's the secret of comedy? He goes, well, kid, there's only 5 jokes. There's a current event joke where something's happening, okay? It could be whatever, it could be, Talk about that. That's good. And then there's a sex joke where somebody's stripping your wife or you're stripping. No, don't do that. Those can be offensive. An ethnic joke where a guy's like, "What are you, Irish? You're Irish. You can do any Irish joke. I'm Jewish. I can do any Jewish joke." So don't do ethnic jokes. He said the best kind of joke is a self-deprecating joke where you draw the ire of the audience on yourself and you make fun of yourself. See, that's real endearing. And I go, what's the fifth kind? He goes, "Oh, that's Bodax. That guy's got a talking duck or a juggler. He's got a guitar. He's got a gimmick. He's hiding behind something. Don't do those. As
Bodax.
Got from a cruise ship. They call him Bodax.
The book is called "It Started with a Turtle" by Dr. Kevin Fitzgerald. Get it on Amazon or at a local bookstore. America has 7 of them.
Yeah, and you could be a nice thing for Christmas. It's also on Archway Press. You could get it through the publisher, but
right.
I think it's a nice book, and it's arrogant to write a book. You think particularly a memoir, because you think your life, everybody's life, is interesting to them.
No, yours is genuinely interesting.
Is it going to be interesting to a room full of strangers, to an audience of people that don't know you? During COVID, we had 2 years where there was no comedy, no movies, no restaurant. So we had time to do it.
Yeah. Keith Richards helped you become a veterinarian. That story is worth telling.
All right.
They're true tales from Weirdsville. Tales from Weirdsville. And they're true.
Can your heart stand the shocking facts?
It was January 8th, 1935, and it was a cold night in Mississippi. A young man stepped outside of his house to have a cigarette. His wife would have joined him, but she was busy back inside. She was giving birth. As the young man stood there, out in the cold, smoking, he saw a strange blue light hovering over his house. Was it a UFO? Was it the Holy Spirit? We don't know. But the man did claim to see something. After a long and difficult labor, the man's wife, Gladys, gave birth to a son named Jesse. It was a complicated delivery, and tragically, Jesse was stillborn. Now, this was the height of the Depression in the backwoods of Mississippi, and Vernon, that was the man's name. Vernon and Gladys couldn't afford a midwife, much less access a hospital. And as such, there was nothing that could be done for baby Jesse. But Gladys was not finished. And about a half hour later, she gave birth to Jesse's twin brother, whom she named Elvis. Now, young Elvis, his last name was Presley, if you haven't figured that out yet, grew up an emotionally complex young man. Twins share a deep emotional bond. And when a twin loses their sibling in the womb, the survivor is susceptible to a very specific set of psychological issues. There's even a name for it now. It's called the womb twin survivor syndrome. Womb twin survivors often struggle with, survivor's guilt. Why me? Why did my twin die and not me? Are they dead because of me? Science fiction author Philip K. Dick, who wrote the book Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, on which the movie Blade Runner is based, was also a womb twin survivor. He had a sister who died in the womb. And when asked once about his twin sister, he said, "I guess I got all the milk," which is a pretty dark joke on the surface, but it does imply a deep, crippling guilt. A guilt that fellow womb twin survivor Elvis Presley shared. After the difficult delivery of Jesse and Elvis, Gladys was told that she wouldn't be able to have any more children. And as a result, unsurprisingly, she lavished attention on young Elvis. Now, this is completely normal for parents with a new baby, never mind a baby that came with that set of circumstances. But Elvis and Gladys's relationship moved beyond that. They were really close, and their relationship moved into what therapists now call lethal enmeshment. Children who are enmeshed with their parents, they have a hard time developing a healthy sense of self-worth because they never fully individuate from their parents. And this lack of a healthy sense of self-worth affects their ability to achieve personal autonomy. You could also say maturity, I guess. They can't regulate their emotions properly during what would otherwise be normal times of stress or normal challenges. They have a hard time setting boundaries. Their lives are marked by a series of unhealthy, codependent relationships. Like, say, achieving success and then surrounding yourself with a bunch of your old friends from Memphis and keeping them all on the payroll so they can't leave you or disagree with you too strenuously. As we said, this lack of emotional autonomy leaves the enmeshed child vulnerable to feeling completely overwhelmed in what would otherwise be normal, stressful situations. They can't regulate their feelings properly, and instead they're prone to self-medication, which often takes the form of alcohol and drug abuse. Sound familiar? Now, in situations where a son is lethally enmeshed with his mother, as were Elvis and Gladys, the child becomes the mother's surrogate husband. He becomes the primary emotional partner. The child receives the emotional and psychological intimacy that should belong to the husband. And this not only burdens the child with an inappropriate level of psychological intimacy, it also causes an unhealthy rivalry between the father and son. The father, subconsciously or not, feels that he's being replaced by his own child. This creates a level of stress and anxiety which the child is not capable of properly regulating, and the cycle starts all over again. This was certainly true with Elvis, Vernon, and Mama. Elvis's emotional life was in a permanent state of cattywampus, and he went looking for solace, sometimes chemically, sometimes spiritually. Miguel Connor is the author of the book The Occult Elvis, The Mystical and Magical Life of the King. Now, the common, if condescending, take on Elvis Presley is that he was just a good old boy at heart, hillbilly in a jumpsuit, eating fried peanut butter sandwiches and shooting the TV out like anybody else. And all of that stuff is absolutely true. But he was also a voracious reader, an incredibly curious person. He had a very healthy intellect. And reading about him, I was very pleasantly surprised to learn that he was a huge Monty Python fan. Now, in the early 1950s, after he had become famous, but before he had joined the army, Elvis stumbled upon a book called The Prophet by a guy named Khalil Gibran. Khalil Gibran was a Lebanese-American philosopher whose book, it drew from all sorts of religious beliefs. He was raised a Maronite Christian, but the Prophet refers to Christian teachings, Islamic teachings, and the message of the book is pretty tame. Basically, it says that individuals are far greater than they realize, and that indeed all is well with the universe. The spark of God is in every human being. To quote Gibran, "You are far greater than you know, and all is well." It was a pretty tame message, to be sure, but it was by a guy named Khalil Gibran, and it involved different kinds of teachings, not just the teachings from the church at the corner. So people like Elvis Presley, who were raised in the Pentecostal Assembly of God Church, were not prone to take it to their hearts, but he did. And don't get me wrong, Elvis loved the church, and his affection for gospel music is well documented. But that love was not always returned. This was the 1950s, after all, and Elvis Presley was Elvis the Pelvis, the man who could not be filmed on TV below the waist. The very church he loved and swore allegiance to denounced him as a degenerate, a danger to families and to the American way of life. Rejected by his own church, Elvis turned to Khalil Gibran's book, The Prophet, and soon Elvis began exploring all forms of spiritual teachings. As early as the late 1950s, Elvis began to question the very concept of heaven and hell and began to look into other belief systems, such as reincarnation, life after death. As Miguel Conner said, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And in Elvis's case, that teacher came in the form of his hairdresser. What? Yes, his hairdresser. Hairdresser to the stars, Larry Geller. In May of 1964, Elvis's regular hairstylist informed him that he was going off to start his own business. Elvis said, "Good luck, pal." He suggested Presley contact his friend Larry Geller. Geller was summoned to Presley's Bel Air digs, cut the king's hair, and as small talk progressed, Geller told Presley of his fascination with Eastern philosophy and mysticism. They spoke for 4 hours on a myriad of subjects, and soon Geller was burying Presley under piles of books that the king would dutifully read, reread, underline, annotate, and discuss at length, whether you wanted to discuss them or not. Among the subjects that Presley studied, Kriya Yoga, Buddhism, Taoism, Freemasonry, ufology, numerology, astrology. He read the books of Gurja, Krishnamurti. He read in depth about Gnosticism and the Kabbalah. He studied Alice Bailey and the concept of esoteric healing. He wore a kai, an ankh, and a cross, joking to his friends that he didn't want to be left out of heaven on a technicality. He studied the Ascendant Masters and wanted to follow in their footsteps. In March of 1965, while driving through Flagstaff, Arizona on his way to film Harem Scarum, with Larry Geller by his side and several members of his entourage, nicknamed the Memphis Mafia, hanging out in the back of the bus, Elvis claimed to see the face of Joseph Stalin in a cloud. And that face then morphed into the face of Jesus Christ. Now to Elvis, as patriotic as an apple pie being digested in the belly of an eagle at a baseball game, Stalin represented the ultimate evil, and Christ the ultimate good. And here those two forces were, hanging out in the same cloud, revealing themselves to Elvis in the middle of the Arizona desert. He went on to tell Geller that the face of Christ smiled at him, piercing his heart with his light. And to Elvis, this was all the convincing he needed. "I'll never have to doubt again." It was after that vision that Elvis knew he had a role to play in the betterment of humankind, as soon as he finished filming Harem Scarum. According to Miguel Conner, Elvis became a faith healer. Elvis could heal you. He visited a friend in the hospital who'd been injured in a motorcycle accident. The man had been in excruciating back pain for weeks. Elvis waved his hands over the man's back for half an hour, and after that, the pain was gone, or so it was reported. Once, a friend was visiting Graceland, and they were going to do some kind of outdoor activity with Elvis, but foreboding rain clouds approached, and it looked like the afternoon's activity would have to be called off. "Not so fast," said the king, who used his hands and telekinetic powers to move the rain clouds away from Graceland, restoring the sunshine, or so it was reported. Even Elvis's wife Priscilla, who didn't buy into his mystical studies, and who I once saw at an airport, swears to this day that Elvis could take away her headaches just by touching her temples. I don't want to brag, but I have been known to give people headaches just by talking to them. Sylvia Shemwell, one of the Sweet Inspirations, Elvis's Vegas backup group, claims that Elvis took away her cancer. Can you prove he didn't? Now, I know what you're thinking. If Elvis was so spiritual and transcendent, why couldn't he heal himself? He died young, out of shape, and addicted to opiates. Miguel Conner, in his book Occult Elvis, says this was, in fact, on brand, invoking Carl Jung's concept of the wounded healer. What? The wounded healer. In Jung's case, he was referring to an analyst, stating that many analysts are motivated to heal because they themselves suffer psychological wounds. Would this not too apply to a spiritual healer? Dare I say those of a womb twin survivor? On August 15th, 1977, Elvis Presley went upstairs, sat down, and found out what happens after you die. Possibly reuniting with dear brother Jesse. We don't know. He was 42 years old. And something else happened that very same night. Ohio State University's Big Ear Telescope, which was used to scan the cosmos for signs of extraterrestrial life, on August 15th, 1977, recorded an incredibly strong narrow-band radio signal, which was picked up from the Sagittarius constellation. Astronomer Jerry Eman noted the anomaly while scanning computer printouts, and, noting the signal's intensity, circled them and wrote the word "wow" beside them, leading to the event's name. Look it up. The WOW signal. The same day Elvis died. Coincidence? Yes.
My head is spinning, going around and around. My head is spinning, going around and around. Your witchcraft got me keep going down and down.
We are about to witness the takeoff of the first manned rocket to outer space. We pick up the count. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And now, on with the show.
My guest today is a dear friend and an estimable talent. I've known this young fella longer than I care to recall. We used to do comedy back when the club would supply the feature acts and the sound systems and the advertising. We just had to show up. No, it's true.
Those are the days.
Those are the days. He's famous for being on Whose Line Is It Anyway? But he's one of the best comedians out there working. I have known him for The Grip, and he has a new album out called Free State of California, and you can get that at his website, which bears his name. And I'm going to cheat the guest, gregproops.com, and you can get it directly at LNK, which is link without a vowel. .to/Free State of California, or just go to gregproops.com. Greg, how are you?
Dana,
how are you?
I'm good. I'm on the road, so I'm.
You are.
I've got I'm using a TV as lighting here, and I see now that it's turning my face green and yellow and stuff as.
Yes, I assume that you're watching. I'm assuming that you're watching the opening of My Three Sons, based on
as always, with the legs and the credits coming down. Chip and Ernie. Yeah, na 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 na. I'm in Alabama with the Whose Line guys, and we've been on the road. We do like 100 dates a year, so I'm forever on the road with them.
Right.
And then I made this record. Did I just say record? I made this.
I still call them records.
Recording.
It's a record.
It's a record. Right. And I made it at the Punchline, where I do stand up once a year, basically.
Right. Now this was on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
It was, and it's funny because we're getting to that point again. I always go up right around Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I leave the day after tomorrow, and you go up for New Year's. And so we always feel this weird touching the Rosetta Stone at the end of the year. I think when I stand on that stage, I think, my God, the first time I stood on this stage, I was a child.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can you believe that?
20.
It's over 40 years for me.
I was 20 the first time I stood on that stage.
Wow. Yeah. And I was 22.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I'm 106 now, so it's a lot of math. I used to go on Sunday night.
I might have been 19, but I think I was 20.
Right. I used to go on Sunday night for the open mic, or whatever they call it, the comedy showcase.
Right.
And Forrest, I was in a team at that point with a guy named Forrest Brakeman, and we were called Proops and Brakeman, and we were, like all teams, astonishingly unfunny. And
better than I was in a team with
I
was in a team with Forrest Ackerman, so you're doing much better than I was.
We would like hope to get on, and we never really did. We just kind of get there and watch the other comics. And there was a comic named Don Weir, I think it was.
Oh yeah,
yeah. He smoke a pipe in the club,
yeah,
and do Cosby's routines somehow. I mean, this was the Wild West.
What was Jackie?
Oh my God, Jackie!
What was her last name?
She was so funny,
and I'm not normal.
I used to work with her at the zoo all the time.
Yeah, she was working at the Holy City Zoo.
Yeah. Oh God, what the heck? Well, it'll come to me as we go along.
Yeah.
There were legendary hacks then. There were some hacks that were, I'm sure your audience knows what a hack is, but what we consider
certainly my audience
in our intellectual look, I'm in an improv group, so what we considered hacks in San Francisco, which was, of course, anyone who did music, anyone who did magic, anyone who juggled or anything like that, anyone who wore a sweater, and I'm wearing a sweater right now.
Sure. It's so funny you say that. It's so funny you say that. I quite literally 2 hours ago, I don't want to brag about my life, but I was at the mall buying underwear. My wife, she wears my underwear as pajamas. So I run out of underwear because I'm buying underwear for two.
I see.
And I was getting ready to go up north, no undies. So like this tears it. So I went by the Gap to buy a grip of undies. And I saw a lovely retro kind of Argyle sweater. Like, and I was like, I should get that. I try it on and like fits. And I thought for half a second, I could wear this weekend. But then I went, no, I'm not going to wear a sweater on stage.
Mm-hmm. I've never worn one on stage. And I remember I did a documentary.
I will wear one like under a jacket, like a V-neck with a t-shirt under a jacket, but never. And I couldn't, I'm telling you, I wouldn't be able to do it.
No, I can't do it. I wasn't even going to wear one for this show, except that I had the air conditioning on my room on stun all afternoon. And I just realized now that I'm curing hams in here. And so I had to put a sweater on. It was either that or a down jacket. And I really didn't want to look like the Unabomber when I talked to you. So
Kurt Russell is in the corner holding a flamethrower. Everybody back off.
Okay, Wilfred Brimley's putting the thing in the blood. Electrical probe in the blood.
Everybody back off.
All I want to do is come back inside.
I feel much better now. One of the least convincing.
But
it
just ran by with a dog's head. If that's to give you an idea of how cold it is up here.
It is amazing how we both have that, because our reference points and our cultural birth are so similar. Like, no, I couldn't wear a sweater on stage. And Richard Pryor wore sweaters at his peak.
Geniuses work. I did a documentary years ago about the history of stand-up. And one of the comics we talked about was Mort Saul. And I said, whose
nickname was The Sweater.
Exactly. And I was before we started tonight, I put the sweater on and I thought, I could never wear this on stage. Dana's going to say something about me wearing a sweater. And then I thought about Mort Saul, and I said, in the documentary, I said, he invented wearing a sweater on stage, basically. Because in those days, it was like the late 50s, super preppy, like, I'm collegiate and I'm intellectual. Mm-hmm. He'd come on with the newspapers in his hand and put them on the thing, and then start talking coffee and a sweater. And then by the time we were comics in the 80s, it meant Acrosaurus Rex.
Yeah.
How come I lose a sock every time I do the laundry?
Right. It meant you were not Kelly Monteith, who's a nice guy.
I remember Kelly Monteith. But he had a huge career in England, by the way.
Good. He was a lovely man. But not Fred Travelina, but those guys, those make me laugh guys, the guys that run make me laugh. Yeah, they all wore sweaters, and they all did the same. It was just like they all did the same act. That was the thing.
I felt like if you wore a sweater, you weren't trying. Like you, first of all, it's too hot to wear a sweater on stage if you're working at all.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's true.
that meant you just were gliding up there like Andy Williams or something. And I'd like to explain, can we have a running thing for every reference we do that your audience will be left in the dirt by?
Well, yeah. What I love, here's my favorite thing about your album, which I highly recommend, Free State of California, to everyone. If you like this podcast, you'll love Greg's album. You're about a minute 43, and you reference the Volga Boatman.
The song of the Volga Boatman. Only I would say that. And like, why?
The seal is broken on Volga Boatman references, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
But there's one thing. I mean, there's so many places to go, and we can't go down. We can't. But I do want to talk about that More Salt period, because
yes, please.
Because that is I wish that's when I was performing. I wish that world still existed. That,
right.
When you go out, everyone's in a suit, everyone's dressed up. It's an evening, and it's just, to me, it was cooler. And what Mort Saul did, was radical. He was punk for the day.
Totally.
And then when you and I were kids, being comedy nerds in the 70s, it was like every great comedian. There were just comedians, David Brenner, Fred Travellina, all those guys, and they were all sweater comics. Even David Brenner, even if he didn't wear a sweater, he was the pretty natural sweater comic.
Yeah.
Hot dogs come in packages of 8, buns come in packages of 10, blah, blah, blah. Great jokes, but everybody was the same personality. And then there were these 4 or 5 comedy superstars who not only did not do traditional stand-up like that, they all dressed very uniquely. George Carlin wore those 3-button long sleeve t-shirts, by and large. Steve Martin had a white suit.
Right.
All of these giant comedians, Rodney Dangerfield had a black suit with a white shirt and a red tie. That was later
with the tie
ruined by someone else. But Rodney always had a red tie, white shirt and a red tie. And it's just like everybody had a visual signature. They didn't really, but that's how it struck me. And I thought when I first started out, the biggest hurdle I had was, what's my costume?
Yeah. Well, I remember when you first came, you would have a little sport coat and jeans on, and then some sort of shoes that you look like you'd found.
Yes, and what I landed on was because it was a vintage dark suit coat and a paisley shirt, and that was my thing. And by the way, I'd like to say, after all that time and effort, it means nothing.
Oh, I don't know. The comics that when comics come on and they're wearing a Hello Kitty backpack and they're 50 years old and they've got an ironic t-shirt on and maybe flip-flops or whatever, I'm always like, yeah, you could work a little harder up there. You could look like a grown-up.
Yeah. But I
made the decision at 30 something. I was in an airport and I was wearing skull shorts and skull shirt. Giant tennis shoes.
I have photos of you in that outfit.
Oh, yeah.
From comedy.
And I saw another guy who was 25 years older than me wearing the same outfit. And from literally that day onward, I was like, it's going to be a suit. And so about 30 something, I started wearing a suit every day on stage. So.
Yeah, on stage. But that's great. Yeah, but it is, I've never, and again, you and I, this doesn't mean anything. Adam Sandler, here's the thing. Adam Sandler plays 18,000 seat venues, which in and of itself, like even at their peak, Carlin, Pryor, Steve Martin, they played like 3,000 seaters. Yeah. It was that level of, and Steve Martin was like 5,000 people. Just, you can't do it.
Yeah.
And now it's like, but I mean, we did have Diamond Vision and stuff, but it's bizarre to me. And I know for a fact that, Adam sits backstage and then a wardrobe woman comes in with a portable, rack with like, here is 4 different sweatpants, 4 different which one would you like?
Baseball
tonight?
caps, hoodies.
Yeah. And but it's just like, I could never, it doesn't matter. Again, doesn't matter. Bert Kreischer doesn't even wear clothes anymore.
Yeah, he doesn't wear a shirt. Yeah,
yeah. But I will always have to dress slightly presentable. I would never wear sweatpants on stage or shorts on stage. No.
It can't be laundry day up there.
Yeah, that's what I
have to have hair. I have to have glasses. The whole enchilada.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm the same way. I can't. And I think it's because in our mind, we do kind of. I think a lot of it is respect for the craft, and I do like harken back to that time. No, this is a show. It's like what Kevin Rooney told me in 1988. It's a show.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that's so funny. I had lunch with Rebecca, Irwin, and Dan yesterday in Atlanta.
I was going to say, what are they doing in Alabama? Dan, by the way, our friend Dan Spencer, the man from whom I stole the idea of Paisley shirts.
Right?
Naked theft is what that was.
We started, geniuses steal, Dana, and hacks borrow, which is why you can tell a hack, because their material's not quite as good as the genius that you stole from.
Oh, we could mention names.
We started talking about, of course, we talked about comedians.
Right.
And I said that I started mentioning all the different San Francisco comics that when I was a child, I learned various things. It wasn't like one comic taught you everything.
No.
Slayton, Bobby Slayton, who's still around, my darlings. It wasn't that I learned material from him.
You're speaking, of course, of the Pitbull of comedy.
That's right. I used to say he was Lenny Bruce without a conscience.
Yes.
Like he had all the stagecraft and all the fucking chutzpah and moxie, and absolutely cocksure on stage. Just a fucking edifice up there. No smiling.
If he went to Britain, would he be plugged as the Staffordshire Terrier of comedy?
So, are you tired of the woke comics? Well, here's one you'll like.
Oh, he's a Staffordshire comedy.
He's going to call a spade, isn't he?
I bet you destroy over there.
I think he's done. I think he's done England from time to time. But from him, I learned that. I would watch him up there, and he would just brutalize crowds and wade into them. And I thought, and then from Jeremy Kramer, who was our little Jewish comedian who was existential and weird, he would go up to those vintage clothes with his mustache and do the most oblique material that the audience had the slightest notion of what he was talking about, and never give an inch on it. And I thought, okay, so you can do that. And then later, Ron Lynch, of course, that dedication to I am going to do a concept up here. And
I was so I love. It's not what I do, even remotely. But that's who I want to watch. Like I love people like Jeremy, Stephen Wright to a degree, although he's really Stephen. Yeah. But Steve and Pee Wee Herman, like this person lives in his own universe, a fully formed universe, and you are going, and that was big in the 80s. Liz Winstead, and done well only infrequently and copied poorly by many, as Liz Winstead used to refer to Pete Pantherman Peters.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Here he comes, the fudge doctor. But there were people like Jeremy and Emo that would just like have these personas and I mean, Jeremy with the helmet with a microphone. People don't know. Jeremy Kramer is to Robin Williams what Captain Beefheart is to Frank Zappa.
Exactly. It's a concept. It's not necessarily followed through all the way sometimes, and fantastically sort of shouty and Jennifer, my wife, remembers coming to see me at the Other, and I was opening and the Other Cafe was a comedy club in San Francisco where you would absolutely ruin your career because you were funny there.
You would.
And as soon as you went to another club in another city and did the same act you did at the Other that you were so funny with, they stared at you blankly.
The Other Cafe in the 80s in San Francisco became Largo in the 90s in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Everybody there was so fine-tuned to No, tell a 25-minute story about how not finding parking before your audition. And then you would go out to the Funny Bone and come back with 2 black eyes, tape on your nose. They never knocked me
Big
down.
cross on your head. Who threw that?
Yeah, they never knocked me down.
Yeah, and Jeremy was dying on stage as usual, and he sat in a chair, and there was a window that was behind the stage that you could look out, and the bus would come by and whatnot. And he sat in the chair, rocking back and forth like embryonically, and chanting "Nobody likes Jeremy" for like a half an hour. And Jennifer was like, "This was the greatest comedy show I've ever seen." You know, like it's. But that's the perversity of San Francisco too. And Durst taught me craft. I remember you were saying it. Kevin Rooney said it's a show. I was at New George's or some awful bloody place, and it was a Tuesday, and I was middling, and I said to Durst, "I know why I'm here. I'm getting $75." I thought I was probably 25 years old, and he went, and I go, "But what are you doing here? How can you possibly want to do a Tuesday night?" And he went, "There's always something to be learned every time you're on stage, Greg."
He's right. He's right.
Oh my God, you're right. Don't be glib about it. Don't be cynical, especially in your 20s when you should be. Couple years
you never
ago,
know. You never,
right?
you know, I'm doing something tomorrow night before it's like, no, because you never know when you're going to stub your toe and it's going to be a diamond.
Yeah. And everything, like Leonard Cohen says, cracks are where the light shines through.
Right. Yeah.
A few years ago, I was in Atlanta, and these 2 comics who were really young, green as grass, come up to me, and one of them said, "Can we ask you some questions?" I said, "Certainly." I don't know anything, but yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And, one of them said, "What about career?" And I went, "You haven't got a career." I said, "You're 20 or whatever."
Yeah.
I go, "What you need is an act." And that's by going out every night and playing in front of live people, like Harrison Ford says in the movie. Do it on YouTube, whatever. Good against remotes is one thing. Good against the living.
That's really well done. Yeah.
Yeah, you better be good in front of a live crowd. If you're great on YouTube, hooray for you. I'm proud of you. But once you get in front of a live audience, man, they have a lot to say.
I was talking to a guy that runs a social media company, and he says, you know, what I get mostly are these young comedians who've got social media dialed in. They know what time and how to get into the algorithm and how to, you know, they know they've got all that. What they don't have is a fucking act, and they don't have any material or backlog. And I was like, well, that's funny. I'm exactly the opposite.
Me too. I don't even know how to put a clip on, but I can do 5 hours of material.
My dying words are going to be, I don't want 2-factor authentication. Punk. Yeah, it's so, but I, you know, the first time I went to San Francisco, I was very young. I was 20, and it's funny. I was at the other emceeing for Jeremy Kramer and Kevin Meaney co-headlining.
Yeah.
And so I'm 20 years old, and I'm in San Francisco, and I'm staying with Dan Spencer and Paul Kozlowski and Tom Kenny.
Right.
And
all the Massachusetts rats.
Yeah. All my old roommates from Boston, and Robin Williams came down every night.
Yeah.
To watch Jeremy and to fuck around with Jeremy. And so by the end of the weekend, I was like, hey, Robin. You know? And then you go back to Boston, where I'm a glorified open micer, and I'm like, gosh, you're not going to believe what happens in San Francisco.
Right. Right.
I was at the most amazing club, and everybody was smart. And now I'm friends with Robin Williams. we all got to go there.
Lenny Clark.
Lenny Clark. He was the Boston Bobby Slayton. Lenny Clark.
Hey, I loved Lenny. You mentioned Robin, and that was the other thing that from my upbringing in San Francisco, I feel like, and you guys who all came from Boston, and we had that huge influx, the 4 of you, plus Bobcat, plus all these.
Yeah, Bobcat. Yeah, Bobcat came first, and then they followed
Paula,
Bobcat, and then I followed them. Yeah.
Was that you became San Francisco comics, and that added to the, I almost said bouillabaisse because I'm Paula Dean. Now I'm in Alabama. It added to the the insanity, and also that Robin was.
Well, it's not a melting pot. It's a salad.
Right. It's a salad. Yeah. It's a hot dish.
It's a hot dish.
As Warren Thomas used to say, Robin was our Elvis. And so the comedy that I still do is dick jokes, vaudeville, impressions, funny voices, lefty politics, and obscure references, all rolled into one thing. And I think Robin was already a huge star, like you said, but he would come down and sit with us at the other.
He was at his zenith. He was Good Morning Vietnam.
Yeah.
He was like at the beginning of his incredibly run, but he just wanted to be a comic.
Yeah.
He just wanted to be one of the guys.
It was insane. And I really feel like almost every comic from San Francisco in that era, it wasn't that we were copying him, because you couldn't copy Robin, but you could certainly steal his stories, but you could, but the ethos of that fast paced and not giving a shit whether everyone got all your sub references, because he did a reference, then a sub reference, then a reference, then a reference, then a reference.
And it's so funny. You and I have that similar kind of palette. Yeah. And I was talking to a young comic who was, working with me, and it's so funny. I was like, you do a lot of really good act outs.
Act outs?
Yeah. Which is now in their school, their class, it's like a specialty, because it's all just talking. But the fact that we would
it's like, do a funny character and
exactly,
hey,
it's
old guy.
Yeah, or just like what when you were doing on the album, I laughed really hard at it. Yeah, it's a song. You're talking about a phonograph, and you put a song on, and the song skips. Yeah. And it was just like that was it. Yeah, that was it. You and I do that without thinking.
Yeah.
To them, that's like a studied, great act out about the phonograph.
Right.
What?
You actually blew it up and people the world and whatever.
And that's the Robin, and all of us just like, and it's something that he invented, but it's certainly something that he made his sort of signature.
I would think he took the thing that Jonathan Winters did to the stand-up stage and made it like an accelerated, hipper thing, because Jonathan Winters always did those bilious politicians and horny children and randy old ladies and creepy cops and racist guys, but he did it by going like this. Well, I'll be back to shoot you later. Oh, they love when you say that, So because he was so winning and everything, he and never wrote a word down. I remember interviewing him once, and I brought a bunch of albums with me, and I said, "Did you lay out any of this?" And he went, "No."
I believe. Yeah. And how much when did you interview Jonathan Winters?
Oh God, 15, 20 years ago for this English. And it was great. I'll tell you, if I can tell you just for a minute.
This is not the time or the place for an interesting story.
Right. It was a British radio interview for a British, like Radio 4 or something. And I went to Montecito, where he lived, and there was a little in-law house in the back, and that's where he received me. And the first one I fucked up and didn't record it right. So I came back, and I brought a woman engineer with me and Jennifer, because I thought, if I come on my own, he'll be friendly with me.
Yeah. And he'll be nice.
I brought two chicks, and they were good looking.
Right.
And as soon as a guy, he was 70 something, gets two good looking chicks in the room, game over.
Right.
The audience is there. So he did every character.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's got to show his plumage.
He did the insane policeman. He did, my first husband was Italian. My God, that man was hairy. And then, he did Chester, my body, I could rub my body with salt, and they would lick it off, everything. And then he did, I swear to you, he goes to Jennifer, and then there's a retarded girl who lives next door. And well, women, they always seem to know what you want. It was the most. And Jennifer, I thought, she fell off the sofa. We were like dying on the floor at that point. He got and then this is the best part.
Oh, my God.
His son, who was middle-aged, and as he said to us, I am old. My children are elderly. His son came in, who was a regular dude with a mustache and a ball cap, and sat there and watched his dad riff for an hour and a half and cried laughing.
That's great. That's amazing.
Really, and then at the end, and he was wearing I think he thought we were English because he'd heard it was a BBC thing.
Right.
He wore a Jack Tar hat that he had somewhere, a little English sailing.
Jesus Christ.
And then when we left, he went, "Goodbye. If you get lost, come back and we'll make tuna sandwiches." And Jennifer told me her buddy, Jen, grew up in Montecito. He was a rich kid. And Jonathan Winters would follow Julia Child around the supermarket. She shopped. She lived in Montecito too. And she would be buying tinned mushrooms and caviar and palm hearts. And he would follow her around and put Cheetos and ding dongs into her basket. He would follow her around the supermarket. And then she'd get to the checkout and be like, "Dear me." And then a box of ding dongs.
That's there was a 60 Minutes interviewed Robin, and Jonathan crashed it.
Yeah.
And it was Ed Bradley. And do you remember?
Right, Ed Bradley.
And during the middle of the interview, Jonathan just starts going, "Ed, we're going to get you out of here. We're going to get you to a free state. We're going to get you on that railroad, Ed."
He was so inappropriate. We did this shittiest benefit once with Drew.
Career enders every set.
Oh my God. We did a hideous benefit with Drew Carey once, and I forget who it was. Nancy Allen. Nancy Allen had some cancer charity in LA, and it was us. It was all the Who's Line guys, and then all the other people. And Gary Marshall got up. It was one of these celebrities.
Yeah.
And it was in Pasadena or something. And they got Robin and they got Jonathan. And Jonathan and Robin got up together. And Jonathan started doing and he did the old Indian. And Robin went like this to him and he went, "Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me." And they put him next to one of the musicians' wives who was wearing the most low-cut top in the universe. And Jonathan was happiest. So I rang him once. I had his phone number in these days. And I rang him to see if he could do my chat show at Largo. This is how long ago it was. And I rang him at his house and he picked up the phone and he goes, "Greg, I'd love to do your chat show, but I've got to go to New York to shoot a commercial with Lauren Bacall." And I said, "Oh, that'd be fantastic." And he went, "Yeah, I'm going to tell her how much I loved her in Casablanca." And I saw the ad later. It was a Dwayne Reed pharmacy ad. Amazing. And Lauren Bacall was the society lady, and Jonathan Winters was the hilarious chauffeur.
Wow.
And he did "Yes, where are you going, madam?" And she went, "Take me." Lauren Bacall, "I want to go to Dwayne Reed, honey," or whatever.
When he went to the slipper school a couple times, as my brother would call it.
The slipper school.
Slipper school.
The Ha Ha Hotel, as Lorna Luft said to me once.
Ha Ha Hotel. And one time he was at slipper school and the psychiatrist is interviewing him, and there's a reason I know this. He did his entire session as like an old Southern sheriff, like Bull Connor. And now he's and it is so inappropriate.
Yeah. It's astonishingly inappropriate.
Right. Like breathtaking. And the reason I know about this is he gave it to George Carlin because they record them,
Yeah.
And he gave it to George Carlin. He said, "You'll laugh at this."
You'll laugh at this. And he did, I'm sure.
Oh my God. Yeah. He goes, he says, "I can never play it for you. I'm never going to give it to you.
Yeah.
I'm never going to play it for you, but know it exists."
Oh my God. That's so good.
Yeah. Larry,
I showed him a picture.
They're everywhere. They're coming for us.
I brought a book, and it was a Flip Wilson book from the 70s, one of those paperbacks you got from Scholastic.
Sure, I probably had it.
Yeah, and I'm sure, right? Because Flip Wilson was so.
I had the Geraldine doll. The devil made me buy this dress.
Oh, my boyfriend Killer going to mess you up. And I showed him a picture of him and Geraldine, and he was dressed as Maudie Frickert. Jonathan Winters did an old woman character named Maudie Frickert for years and years and years, and he dressed like.
And then Johnny Carson brazenly stole it.
Oh no, totally! But Carson stole Gleason's. Reginald Van Gleason,
and Floyd R. Turbo is Tommy Smothers, and Art Fern is Ernie Kovacs.
Yes, he just stole them, and I showed him the photo, and he dressed like Whistler's mother, like the
I know it, Maud Frickett,
the black thing, and he goes, I had to quit doing Maudie Frickert because he began to take over, and I said, Jonathan. Take over with whom? With the audience or with you? And he went, with me. And I thought, you were unable to stop. Like you would come off and you couldn't stop being Maud Frickert. You couldn't stop being an old lady who was the horniest her character was. That she was so randy that every joke was a dick joke.
Right. Wow. And it's great. I don't know if there's a modern comparison to him.
Oh no, Robin was as close as we got, but Robin was hipper, younger, more drug fueled, all those things.
Yeah, but I don't know about anybody contemporary who does that kind of stuff. There's it's whatever. It's not for us to judge, but I don't see. Comedy stand-up has changed in our lifetime to something that's it's more, it seems to me by and large less written, less, they don't go as deep into things, there are fewer bits, it's more just attitude reportage.
And the return of crowd work when you're not an opening act, which I'm not a big subscriber to. That there's major comics who shall remain nameless who do gigantic specials and they talk to the crowd half the goddamn time. And I'm not talking about Todd Berry. Todd Berry's a singular case. I'm talking about the mainstream.
I know you're talking about.
Schlocky comics.
And it's just, I don't, and I've said this, that I was just talking to some civilians. And I was talking about like that Bird Crusher, like 18,000 seats. And I was like, I don't begrudge anybody anything. Like, unless they're doing my act, I don't care. That's the only thing I like my act. And unless someone's just stealing it and being more successful, I don't really, you work for 8 people or 80,000, it doesn't affect me at all. More power to you. But I do feel that it's like you listen to these albums and they go like, there's no material on this.
Yeah.
But the people like it. I don't want to sound like, John Entwistle bitching about the Beastie Boys. I
refuse to do that. I refuse to say it's worse than it was.
Yeah, no, it's just different, and we've seen it change, and we've seen it. We've seen it change, and then you'll see people that are new that are just amazing. That's the great thing is I always will see somebody new coming up that's like, oh my God, they're so good.
When I was still playing the clubs more a few years ago, I noticed that they were a lot hipper than we were when we started. When we started in the 80s, there was still a lot of Chinese driver jokes and gay jokes. And then I've watched the mainstream guys.
And gay Chinese driver jokes.
Right? Which were the worst. But the men, the mainstream incel, that army, have really gone retro on that shit, and it's horrible. Yeah. But the main difference is there weren't nearly the amount of women and not white guys. I mean, it is not.
Yes.
And I started, there was an 80% chance it was going to be 3 white guys on the bill.
Sure.
And now that's not the case. And I think that's the most beautiful thing, that they really did open it up. We have comics that are Muslim. We have comics that are Hindu.
I agree completely.
And they just didn't have that then. They really didn't. There was one Indian guy, it was really,
and he
really,
had to,
really
and he had to
edgy.
do Indian shtick.
Yeah.
That's
the heavyweight
yeah.
champion of Pakistan is in 97 pounds, and ha ha ha.
Right. Yeah. No. That is, that's one of the, and by the way, that is why those guys have gone so retro, because it's the dinosaurs looking at an asteroid. It's
totally.
It's like, yeah, look, dude, 2,000 years was a great run. Enjoy it.
Right. That's so funny you say that. I said that to someone yesterday.
Oh, really?
Because I did it on the last album. The dinosaurs, looking, and then one looks up and goes, "Vaya con Dios, bros. It's been a great." Yeah. But I said to someone yesterday, they asked me, "What about the present regime?" And I said, "It's not the last gasp. It's just the first Tyrannosaurus glancing up and going, there goes the comet."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And
because they knew it hit, and now the playing field is this giant thing. And guess what? There's a black girl out there with your name on her, and she's funnier than you, and more inventive than you, and more in tune with what's going on than you, and hipper to the jive than you are. And these guys who get out there and go, "Well, you can't say anything anymore." You can. It just has to be written and funny.
Yeah, you have to think about it. And you also, well, and this is the I'm saying something you know, but there's two things of it. Yeah, you can say anything you want. You just have to give it some thought. And two, you can't say anything with impunity anymore. You might say something and somebody doesn't like it, and now they have a vehicle to express the fact that they don't like it. That's the issue. Let's use the R word, which has come roaring back. Like, this will not stand. It came back like vinyl,
Yeah, and, right.
And I was late to stopping using that word. And it wasn't until I, worked with somebody who is an actor who is a big, that's not a good word.
Yeah.
And, so like, oh, I see why. And now that I know your family, I see how you see that as hurtful. And no, I don't, but you do. And that's enough. And if it's like, if you really, really, really want to say it, so much so that you'll move to Texas.
That's what I was just going to say. You have to go to Austin.
Yeah. But the question is, why? Why do you want to say this so badly that U-Haul gets involved?
It's so childish, isn't it? To have to move to Austin and start your own club so that you can say awful things on stage.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
We used to go on the road in the 80s, and comics were saying awful things on stage everywhere.
And you can do anything still. You just have to be creative about it.
Yeah.
And that's probably it's better. Evil Dead 2 is better than Army of Darkness because they had less money.
Yeah.
So they had to be more creative.
Yeah.
Usually with comedy and horror, the more creative you're forced to be, the better the end product.
Yeah, I agree with that. But then that begs the question, like you say, why is it so important for them to say that? And why aren't you using your creativity? And when I get to a difficult point and I'll say to my wife, this isn't working, and I think it's really funny, but it's too nasty or too edgy or too in their face. And she'll go, why don't you do a funny voice?
Yeah.
And then I'll go, oh, right, the simplest solution. So now you're a character, or now you're giving it to someone else, or now you're whatever. And now you're the hideous racist person, but oh my God, it's so funny now.
Yeah. I also fully agree. There are things that are just, oh, shut up. I have a lot of tiki stuff. Like I live in the house that I wish I grew up in.
I was going to say your house.
Yeah. And
it's like a shag cartoon or whatever.
It is a shag cartoon, and it's full of shag art. And someone said, like, is this cultural appropriation? I was like, well, if it is, that's what I'm guilty of. And that's what I will die being guilty of. I'm Irish. I can eat a pizza. I know it's cultural appropriation. I know it's an Italian food. Yeah. I can wear an alpaca coat. I know it's not from Ireland, but I
can listen to soul music.
Can I listen to the Temptations if I'm I wouldn't dare dance.
Right.
Oh boy, there's another we're talking about like that era of show business, and I'm sure you do this. I was watching, you're in hotels a lot. And sometimes if you can't put Netflix on the TV, it's basically Ancient Aliens. Yeah. Or if you're lucky, you get Pluto. And I like Perry Mason, obviously.
Me too.
I like a big suit. And the best of Ed Sullivan. And you watch like Gladys Knight and the Pips from like 1967. And that talk about like a show. Yeah. Like, and I know that was also at the same time as Gladys Knight and the Pips were at their furious peak of choreography, and it's just, and the reason they were so good is they did it 3 times a night, every fucking night. Yeah. They did it and then that was the same time Jefferson Airplane were staring at their shoes. And then you look at these guys and it's alarming how good they are. Yeah. And you just don't see that. You do see giant dancing with like an Ariana Grande tour, Taylor Swift tour. They do have dancers and stuff like that. But like, just like a band coming out on the Tonight Show or whatever, you do not ever get that, what the Temptations would do. It was just like astounding.
Oh, don't. Yeah. Those are so many of my favorite groups, and I saw them all. And did you ever see that documentary that Questlove did with the other guy, Summer of Soul?
Yes.
Showed the thing in the park in New York that no one had ever seen the footage from
and it was during Woodstock or like the week after Woodstock or something. Yeah.
And the scruffy hippies are up there noodling, and every soul act got up, and they were jazz, they were Latin, they were soul, they were disco, and Gladys Knight and the Pips beat the daylights out of that crowd and danced off stage. Danced in a line all the way off stage. And the crowd was literally like they're pulling their hair out. It was so good.
Yeah, it was so good.
He said that they used to go on those Motown tours, and every group would come on and do 3 or 4 numbers. And they would be on before the Supremes. And she said, the Supremes fucking hated following us.
I believe
because we lit and the Supremes had big hits. Yeah. Big like Beatles, the Supremes were. Yes. There's no way to describe how big the Supremes and Diana Ross were. Yeah. They were Beyonce big.
Yes.
And Gladys Knight and the Pips act was just so smoking good. And she was such a wonderful singer. Mm-hmm. And she said, Diana Ross didn't like fucking following me, man, because I could do the business, Right. And I saw the Temptations on their reunion tour, and in 1982 or 83, and they had Eddie Kendricks and David Ruffin with them. And Eddie Kendricks got up to sing My Girl, and it was at Concord Pavilion outdoors. And in the Bay Area, there was a vocal group standing next to the stage because it was an outdoor venue. And Eddie Kendricks handed in the mic, and this vocal group, who I don't know if he knew, I guess he knew them, sang each verse of My Girl, and the Temptations did the background vocals on stage. And Eddie Kendricks stood like this the entire time. And when it was over, he went. And I've never seen a performer that gracious. And of course, they looked beautiful.
Sure, yeah.
Slim and elegant. And in those fuck off suits. And they had the mic stand with the 5 mics on it and everything.
Oh, God,
and then at the end of the show, they were walking around the perimeter of the stage and people were touching them. Yeah. And a guy grabbed Eddie Kendricks, grabbed. And he went, oh. And I was like, well, I love you so much. Because he didn't go, hey, boom, or anything. He went and remonstrated like, oh, don't grab me. I'm Eddie Kendricks.
Do you ever watch reaction videos?
Just my imagination. Sorry, I said My Girl. Yeah.
One of my favorite things is watching classically trained musicians watching the one that I love the most is watching them watch the Who play "Won't Get Fooled Again" live.
Yeah,
because the horror when they start smashing their instruments, like oh.
Yeah.
But there's this one. She's really great. By the way, I love these videos. I find them so. I just waste so much time.
Yeah.
She's called the Charismatic Voice, and watching the Charismatic Voice watch the Who do "Won't Get Fooled Again" is so enjoyable. And I was watching her watch Jimi Hendrix. She'd never seen it before.
But Monterey, when he was, that's the guitar on fire or whatever.
Yes, but it was earlier, or it might have been a different footage. But I think he's in the same outfit for Monterey, and he's playing the guitar with his teeth, and then he plays it behind his head. And she was like, "Has anyone ever done that before?" And I was like, "Yeah," because he came up in the Chitlin circuit, where everybody did that.
Yeah,
because you had to do 78 things at once to keep everybody's attention.
Yeah.
And it's like, why was he so good? Because he did this 3 nights a week, 7, three times a night, 7 nights a week, 30 nights a month. It's just like, not only did he learn how to do that, he could do it without thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how you get good, I think. I mean, I'm not a big Malcolm Gladwell person because I don't believe in him, but I do believe in stage time and rehearsal make you better.
Yeah.
And that's why when people want to do shortcuts and go like, well, I'm funny now. You're like, yeah, well, you try holding the crowd down for an hour without writing anything. You need to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You need to learn to do that. You can't just walk in and do it. It has to be something you do. And you have to do it a million zillion times. And you have to play all the time.
And I still, when I get off stage, like, I still take great satisfaction that I can do 60, 70 minutes without a breath.
Yeah.
And never take my foot off your throat and never have to.
Yeah.
And then walk off.
Yeah.
And like, I what do you still do? I like that feeling.
I love being in a group. I really do. And I love giving myself over to the group. I love enormous undertakings.
Sure.
I like being in a giant group. Like you've done enough television, theater, this, that, where you're one cog in a gigantic thing.
It's certainly less lonely.
There's a satisfaction in it that is enormous because we're all working toward this one thing. But being up there by yourself, to make a terrible metaphor, it's a laser beam. I have the laser beam and I get to do what I want with it. And I don't have to acknowledge or deal with anybody else's bullshit, ideas, agenda, anything. It's you, me. As Bill Hicks said, less comedy and more me. Less jokes and more me.
Yeah. And it was so funny. I like working with, people that are just coming up. And I was just really great club, highly recommended. Commonwealth Comedy Club in Dayton, Kentucky. It's right over the bridge from Cincinnati, Ohio. And it's in an old church, and the people that run it are comedy people. Like they love comedy, they love comedians, and they care. They really care. I really loved working there. And I was working with somebody who was just kind of newish, and they were saying, why do you move so much?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, coming from Boston, before San Francisco, I was in Boston where it was combat.
I was going to say where people were throwing things.
Yeah. But what it was is it's territorial. I walk out and I basically walk the entire breadth of the stage close to the lip. I'm like, no, this is all mine.
Yeah. And
I will also take a weird pause randomly for an uncomfortable amount of time to tell you, yes, and the time is mine too.
Mm-hmm.
This is all, and if you show no fear, and if somebody tries to fuck it up, you ignore it. They know pretty quickly, oh, this guy, this is, we're in the hands of a professional.
Yeah.
And it's good to do something you're good at.
You have to prove yourself every night too. I mean, that's the thing. You always think when you're first starting that someone like that's been doing it a long time is bulletproof because they've done it a lot and they have great jokes and stuff. And it's like, you can fail any night.
And you still don't know what's going to work.
Right. Or when it's going to fail or why it's going to fail, you know? And I remember Stanhope said to me once, we were talking about doing jokes that the second part isn't working or this chunk isn't working. Yes, we call our bits chunks.
Chunks.
And he said, I never fix anything until it stops working.
Yeah.
And it's like, you'll do. And then I would always realize when I did clubs all the time that part of why things weren't working was I was running through them without giving them the proper theatrical emphasis, that I was not imbuing them with the importance that is required for the audience to stay attentive.
Yeah.
And that the reason why it wasn't that the joke wasn't funny anymore, it's that I wasn't telling the joke as good as it could be.
Yeah,
told.
you weren't invested in it anymore. You have to,
right. And then,
and there are times when a bit just wears out.
Yeah. And there's also a specific, like people say, are you nervous? And I'm sure you get that all the time too. And it's like, no, I'm not nervous. But if I have a bit that I've written and I want it to be exactly the way it goes, the specificity of it is really important. And so when you mess up a part or you blow the setup to the big thing that's going to lead to the other thing, that's where your mind is at. You're thinking, I misworded this sentence.
Yeah. Oh, God, I'm going through that right now.
Right. I put this word before this word and this word here, and that's not where they go in order for it to flow the way I want it to flow. And then the last 4 albums that I've made, including this one, I'll have a general idea. And then the first night I'll go out and riff it all. And then each subsequent
that's what I wanted to ask you. Like how riffed is this?
Riffed.
It sounds very, it's the word, there's not a wasted word, but it also sounds very in the moment.
It's riffed.
Yeah.
I have 4 sets to do it over. So the first set is probably not the bulk of the album. I would say the 3rd and 4th sets, because so I have an idea of what I'm going to talk about. I don't write it all out. Of course, I've worked both ways. Excuse me. Yeah. I have whole albums and whole hours of sets where every single word's been poured over and you go on stage and you work on it 1,000,000 times.
Yeah.
And you do it 1,000,000 times.
That's
and
me.
then you fix it. You fix it because I'm sure you've done this too. Pardon me. Where you record something and now it's been recorded. Like I have an album that I did like 10 years ago. Every single bit on that album, I carried on doing for another couple of years on stage and made much funnier.
Sure.
And so I wish that all that material was from 2 years later when I had really, really fleshed out, the ideas and everything.
But even still, like when I go on, like, and if I have like 1 or 2 new things, even if they're little, it makes the whole hour worth it.
Right. Because now you're so concentrated on the new thing you're going to do and making sure you get it. It's
just right.
It's hard to explain to like civilians to get it right. And it doesn't mean making it perfect. It means getting it right the way in your mind you saw it, heard it, felt it, The idea you're trying to get across is the important thing. So with these albums, I'll have an idea. I'll have a few notes here and there. Jennifer will, riff with me a little and I'll go, oh, that's funny. Or I won't tell her and I'll surprise her with a story that she doesn't know I'm going to tell or something. And then I'll go on and try to flesh them all out. And I found that over the years, especially doing a podcast by myself for 10 years, that trusting yourself to make mistakes and trusting yourself to remember that thing that you set up a million years ago. And calling it back is 90% of it. And Durst said to me once, you're able to tell a story funny. And that's 100% of it. Like to be able to tell the story, like you say, I'm really careful about the words I'm choosing. And listening to even this album, I would have reworded a bunch of stuff. I would have, if I had been doing it as a bit every night, I would have reworded things. But because I'm just riffing it and I only did it 3 or 4 times instead of over months.
Mm-hmm.
It's not quite as honed, but I love the immediacy.
Sure.
The immediacy of it, to me, overwhelms the day. And I have enough confidence in myself, and I think I'm funny enough that I can tell these fucking stories or expound these ideas off the top of my head, fill them with characters, put in a bunch of vocabulary words, lose the audience 20 times, come back, get them again, and that's the trick of it, I think. The fun of it is that I love walking on a tightrope, and to make an album on a tightrope is, to me, and then, sometimes comics will go, well, they improvised this whole album. I can't believe they did that. It's like, I've done 4 in a row.
Yeah.
Not that I'm so great. It's
but
just
I know. So the point is I didn't know.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And so I don't remember a lot of these, like when I go on to do a proper set at a club, I can't remember material off these 4 albums because I didn't do them a million times.
Right.
I only did them of the week I did them.
Right.
So I have to go back. Actually, this makes me laugh. I have to go back and listen to them. Years ago, I remember reading.
I've had to do that.
Right. I remember reading an article about the Rolling Stones. And at the beginning of the Rolling Stones, when they would go on a tour every 2 or 3 years, they would meet in Toronto at this rehearsal hall. And they would all be there with their axes and their mics and ready to go. And the first thing they do is say to the engineer, play this record. And he'd play them their records. And they'd go, right, that's D minor. And then this part goes here. And then they play it. And so I feel like if I'm going to remember a bit from one of the albums that I improvised, I have to fucking listen to it a bunch of times, like I'm watching another comic almost, and remember what I said and why I said it,
Yeah. And I'll get I'll get an idea and I'll be like, God, I know there's a joke in this. I don't know how to get at it. Like lately I've been obsessed with the idea that the human body biodegrades, but breast implants don't. So our cemeteries are full of skeletons with giant tits in dresses.
Right.
And what will aliens think of our culture when they excavate it? Like, why did they love water balloons? Why were females? I don't know what the joke is, but it was just like, I know that there's a bit in there. God damn it. And then I'll slave over that and come up with 40 different versions of it. And none of them will be funny. And then my mother will die and I'll go on stage and I'll just vent about it. And that'll be a new 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Like,
right?
This is because I'm emotionally connected to it. And the other one is just a simple intellectual exercise that doesn't
right? Isn't that the perversion of comedy?
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything to anybody. Yeah.
I remember getting up one night years ago at a club in LA, and I was in the best mood. I'd had the best day, and Jennifer and I had hung out and we had dinner, and I came to the club and I had nothing to say. And I had to go outside and stomp up and down the street and fulminate for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I got myself into a lather. And then when I went up on stage, I was hilarious because if I'm not in a dudgeon about something, if you're not emotionally connected and committed to what you're talking about up there, it just comes off like pablum to me.
To speak in the nomenclature of liner notes, you and I both have our skewed take on the modern scene.
Dana has a unique take on today's modern happening.
I hold a mirror up.
Yeah.
But now we're so balkanized that I either feel like whatever you do, you have to really frame it in mashed potatoes so it's accessible. And you also have to be very careful because here's the thing. Every day there's 4 things that would be the only thing a decent comedian would talk about. But because there's 4 things every day, you can't.
Yeah.
And you just have to sit and watch the insanity go by uncommented upon.
No, it's overwhelming. And how do you become I really hate that. Well, it must be great because there's so many great jokes and so much to talk about and so much to laugh at. And it's like, no, that's like saying it was really awesome when Stalin was killing your uncle because, now you have a real personal connection to that tragedy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, well, no, I don't want the world to be this way, but the world is this way.
Yeah. And people say, do you have a little Trump joke? No, I have none. I don't find him funny.
That's the other thing that I don't think civilians can understand is that almost every intelligent comedian doesn't find any of this funny at all.
Yeah.
This is not what we find funny about the world. A mad person with a diaper on who's talking to literally one of the most lethal, anti-Semitic, disgusting human beings that ever lived, who's king of an enormously wealthy Middle East nation, and the two of them punching each other and riffing and acting like frat guys, while we know that he chopped a person to death with a bone saw, ordered that, and that they've starved the people of the Yemen, and that the other guy killed 1 million people with COVID and hundreds of thousands of people by denying them aid.
Yes.
That's endless crimes.
Yeah. And by the way, and that's what I would say to the New York Times reporter. Why don't you ask him about the 600,000 people dead from USAID? Because then you get into one. Well, then you do get to Stalin. One person's a tragedy. 600,000 is a statistic.
Yeah. And exactly, that's the humans we can't comprehend it. We can't assimilate it. And like you say, I have to make conscious decisions day by day to not immerse myself in it. Although yes, I did watch all that stuff today. And at one I found myself boiling,
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, okay, so what are you going to do? No, you're not going to solve this. And then, you make some social media post that's pertinent or cogent and everybody does a thing. And that's about all we can do is be in the conversation, the social media conversation.
Yeah.
And then do the political things we do that aren't on social media. But like, as far as comedy goes, that album I did at the end of last year, he hadn't been inaugurated yet. And San Francisco was in that deep, dark cloud of this is the
I was there again. I was
right?
there 3 weeks before you were. I was
right. And you all knew in a month's time, it was all going to start.
Yeah.
And so I believe I come on going, we're not even going to talk about it. We're not even going to fucking
you do. Yeah.
And everybody doesn't even know what we're not going to talk about because we know what we're going to not talk about. Right. And an album or two before, probably the first term, I did a gigantically long thing about him and all the funny names and how he acted. And I did a thing with Hillary, juxtaposing if Hillary had said all the things that he had said, or Obama had said the things he'd said.
Right.
But we're so far, we're 10 years into this now.
Yeah.
We're 10 years into the Nazi regime. And basically we're Abbott and Costello during World War II or whatever. It's like the world is upside down. It's not going to not be upside down for a while. And we have to be the artists that were artists in the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s when George Carlin and Richard Pryor were finding themselves before they were as great as they were. They weren't as good of comics during the time of immense turmoil. They came out of that immense turmoil into the early 70s and became the geniuses.
Yeah.
That crucible created.
That's well put.
The crucible of the mid and late 60s is America was in a civil war, young versus old, black versus white, women versus men, poor versus rich, exactly like now, but not.
Right.
Analogous to now. And I think that's where we're at. We have to be these artists who absorb all the terror and horror that's going on and pick and choose someone. I know who it was yesterday. I was talking to George Hahn, and he said that Joan Rivers said that a joke is a small vacation, and that you're giving people a really small vacation by making them laugh. And I kind of feel like Jeff Davis and I talk about this in our little improv show here. We go out every night and we clown. Yeah, we have some political jokes. Of course, we do some hilarious, what if Trump was boning J.D. Vance, burlesque and stuff.
You have some japes.
We have japes with Jack Napery and bits and bits and bobs.
Not to be confused with Jack Napier, probably.
Yeah, and but every once in a while, we don't sit around and discuss it all the time because comedy is not philosophy, as opposed to this episode. But and I'm right, we're making no case for that. What we talk about is 1,100 people or however many people have come, and they really just want to get it on for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
It's 90 minutes. They want to hear some dick jokes.
Yeah.
They want to hear some whips.
And I respect the fuck out of that.
Right. They want to talk. They want to
Yeah.
hear themselves talked about, their town, the state, their area, their governor, their thing, the life that they live. That
Yeah.
they get to, because it's an improv show, they get to yell shit out. So there's that element too. And that we're there to fucking clown it up and serve them. It doesn't mean that there's no conscience at all. I, of course, Dana, cannot help but slip my bitter, horrible opinion into everything.
Sure.
It's part of who I am.
Well, it's also a Who's Line crowd, so they're going to be, it's not like, you became famous doing sketches on Gutfield, but the other thing I find odd about it, and it's something I have to keep in mind because, and this isn't just on stage, this is in life, like, because we see everything and we do wonder, like, well, how do I live in a place where half the people are fine with this?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is, half of that half has no fucking idea.
Yep.
Not because they're willfully ignorant. Most of those people, they don't live in the news. They live on ESPN. And they tune into the news for an hour a day at the most, and it's Fox. So they don't get any contrary. My brother is a perfect example of that. My brother, Kevin, loves Trump and is a big Trump supporter. And is a regular guy. And I asked him what he thought about RFK running out of the thing. It's about 2 or 3 days after that had happened. Yeah. He had no idea what I was talking about.
Yeah, he didn't even know.
No, he had no idea. I was like, what happened?
Important.
Yeah, it just like doesn't get in he's not eyeball deep like you and I. We're down like, in Jaws where the camera's halfway at the water line, looking down here. And he has no idea. He has no idea.
It's simply not important to them, or it's not part of their world. Like you said, gaming, pornography, sports, the things that white men really devote a good deal of their time to.
Yeah.
And their business. Right. They don't think about a lot of other things. They're not on social media and the phone like you and I are every goddamn minute of the day, absorbing every news story and fulminating and having a mental crisis over it.
Right.
And wondering why the world is so unfair and full of Nazis. I'm going to quote Woody Allen, and this is horrible because we really oughtn't quote Woody Allen, but he did have a wonderful quote once where he said, I'm not surprised there were Nazis. What I'm always surprised by is that there weren't more Nazis.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we are. It's like, it isn't everyone. It's never always been everyone. It's always been whatever percentage you want to say it is, 25, 30, 40, whatever percent is. And as you say, half of them are not active participants. The thing Orwell knew that, and Jennifer said it to me today, why did Orwell know everything? And I'm like, because he was in Europe in the 30s and he was a colonial police captain in the 20s in Burma. So he saw what England was, the giant colonial octopus of racism and oppression and paranoia and propaganda. And he saw it for what it was. He was going to call 1984, 1948, because that's when he wrote it. And the publisher flipped the fuck out and went, you're not calling it this year. And he's like, but this is where England's at right now. Short of the technology, which of course we have now, all of the technology that was in 1984, the TV that watches you, which we're doing right now.
Yeah.
The phone that watches you, that you're being listened to, because we are being listened to all the time.
Yeah.
We gave it up so that we could click one thing and have easier access to everything. We've surrendered our own personal information and freedom. But I had a point at the beginning.
I take your point. Yeah. But now back, what right now I can do in the time it takes to say it is find out how many pancakes tall I am.
Right.
You know,
and what I love is that you're given the magic toy that you carry around with you that literally has the sum total knowledge of the universe in it or whatever, and that no one ever uses it for that.
Yeah, no, that's
like you say with your brother. I'll say to my sister, well, you heard the album. I never talk about my family on records. And I finally just had it because we really did have that conversation where she said, Biden's letting fentanyl into the country. And there's no arguing it. I can't.
You can send her
a million.
There's no arguing it. There's no arguing.
I could send a million articles and make a huge lawyerly case of why that's factually not true. And it simply doesn't matter.
And
that's what Orwell knew.
Yeah.
Orwell knew that he went through fascism in Spain. He went through fascism in England. He went through fascism. And he felt that the English government were fascist after the war when they had identity cards and you literally had to produce your identification on the street, which was what, and they're going back to it. They're going to start penalizing immigrants in England right now. I did a hunger benefit years ago and Romeo Dalal was there, who was the commanding officer at Rwanda, right? The one played by Nick Nolte in the movie, right? He's a French Canadian. He was in charge of the UN troops and he was there for the Hutus and the Tutsis cutting each other to pieces. Wow. And this was a hunger benefit. And he was one of the guests. And it was me and Goldie Hawn and Jeff Daniels and every other fucking, right?
Oh my God.
So Jalal gets up and I'm hosting. Jalal gets up and he goes, if you want to talk about hunger, really offhand, right? Like very, casual. He didn't go into a big Sturm und Drang. He went, if you want to talk about hunger, when I was in Rwanda, 12-year-old stuck a carbine at my nose and I threw a candy bar on the ground and they dropped the carbine and they grabbed the candy bar so they could eat it. And that's what we're talking about. And he finished and the crowd went completely silent because they were all rich liberals. It was like Frank McCord and all these billionaires. And the king, I swear to you, the king of Ghana. The king of Ghana was there with two women. And that was my greatest joke of the night. I turned to Goldie Hawn and I said, he thinks he's all that. He thinks he's the king of Lesotho as well. And she laughed at him, like, God bless her. Anyway, I had to go up right after his story about the child picking up the candy bar. And I was desperate, Dana, to say, thank you, General Dalal. You've certainly given us food for thought. I did not, but I was this close to it. And at the opening of the show, this was during Bush, at the opening of the show, I did a bunch of jokes about Bush and Cheney. And Frank McCorder, one of the billionaires, came up to me and went, hey, we got a lot of Republicans here tonight. And you were doing those jokes about Republicans. And I said, here's something. I'm doing this for free. Okay, so I get to say what I want. If you're paying me, then you might have some editorial. It also sounded like those guys sounded like the mafioso in Lenny Bruce's bit about Chicago. Then from Philadelphia, like a tape recording playing backwards.
These guys are doing dinosaur takes. So let's go back to the album. Sorry. The album is called Free State of California. You can get it at gregproops.com. And if you see Greg live, you will not just be hearing him recite what is on this album. This album is in the moment of its time.
I'll be doing it again on New Year's. And I was looking around for
Is this
comics.
your thing now? You record an album every New Year's? And
two reasons. Doug Benson years ago, he and I were doing a thing together. And Doug Benson said, I put an album out every year on top of everything else I do. And I was like, that's very, very good. And then George Carlin, who from the age of 60 to 70 put out an hour every year, a brand new hour of comedy. And I am in my 60s and I am going to put out an hour of comedy every year, come hell or high water. So those are the two goals I had. This year I'm at the Punchline on the 30th and the 31st New Year's Eve. I was calling around because I didn't want any men on the show because I've really tried to work with just women so that it's not three guys. And I got a hold of Jackie Cation. And I said, Jackie, you know every woman comic in America because her and Lori make it their business to really know all the women comics. And I said, is there a woman you can recommend to me that I could ask that would take this kind of money and da-da-da? And she went, I'll do it. So I have Jackie Cation featuring for me, who is a legitimate headliner and a genius comic on her own. So I couldn't be more thrilled.
Oh my God, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so it's me, Jaya, and Jackie Cation for New Year's this year. And yes, I'm making another album.
Oh, that's terrific. Well, thanks. We can thank Molly Schmink for all of that.
Yeah, she stuck by me, baby. And
same thing.
Really no reason for her to do this other than, we're geniuses. But I mean, that doesn't matter in comedy world. And she's, God bless her.
Yeah, God bless her. I agree 100%.
Other podcasts reach for the sky. The Dana Gould Hour.
We barely try.
This has been the Dana Gould Hour, brought to you by the Internet. Music by Andy Paley, with Jake Posner behind the board. Graphic design and web production by Spencer Hunt and Segan Friend. Sound editing and post-production by Jalinda Palmer and Joe Napolitano. Tom Kenny speaking.
I'm a DJ, I'm a person, I'm a singer, I love to sing and DJ. Boom! Peace out. You want me? Peace out. Boom.